right now, my video gaming has gone to shit. Like I literally play like one game of Hearthstone Battlegrounds a day, and that's it. And else play any other video games right now. Too focused on painting. Try to get good. Trying to focus. So
well, you have been lighting up my Twitter feed with your stuff, and it's weird because you're one of the people I interact with like I think more than like a great deal of consistency on Twitter. And so this episode's been a long time coming. I see kickers there in chat.
Yeah.
Which means it is, of course, time for AOS RantCast, episode 69.
Yeah.
Yeah.
69!
Insert pervy joke here. I am, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto. I am the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar, celebrating my favorite month, which is October, or Mephtober, if you've been watching any of the live streaming I've been doing. Tonight's episode is, well, I guess what's really important is Sean is joining me. He hosts his own show called Hobby.
Who the fuck knows what we'll talk about? What?
Yeah. What are we going to talk about? Who knows? We're going maximum RantCast tonight.
We're turning up to 11.
Well,
get up to 69.
Yeah, all the way to 69. See, the last few episodes have been too like focused, and like I had one that was actually sub 2 hours, and I'm like, this is unacceptable. Like, this is why I don't do Battletome reviews, because you can finish those in an hour, and that is disgusting. Think of how much better my algorithm would look with only 1 hour shows. Gross. Ugh. No, thank you.
or like 15-minute ones. You're just like, this is the Battletome. It has a lot of stuff in it. You'll see it in about a week. Sounds good. See you later. Bye. Here's some hobby stuff I did.
Yeah.
All right. That was good. 10 minutes is up. All right. Now we're really hitting the algorithm with that once per week 10-minute video.
No. It's once per day, 16-minute. If you really want to...
Once per day, 16 minutes. That's the max? Okay.
Once per day, 16 minutes, because then you get the second ad break in your video for maximum YouTube, like Chuck E. Cheese dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I think that sounds like such a Google thing, too, to be like an obscure number like 16 to be like, this is the min-max.
Because it can't be a deliberate number. So if it's 15, it looks too much like you tried to make it 15. And YouTube deals very heavily in something they call the sort of currency of authenticity. So your aim for YouTube is to be a person with a camera as much as possible without with like good production, but you want to hide all your production value.
So it should actually be like 16 minutes and like 24 seconds.
Yes.
You're like, this is the perfect. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Like, because that just happens to be around when most people cut off for their daily vlog. 16 minutes and 24 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's there's a it's math. And the algorithm shifts. Like they will change it. People seem to be kind of onto it, but they'll shift. Podcasts themselves, as far as pure audio, about an hour is supposed to be ideal. So just around.
It's like a drive to and from work for most people commute, right?
Right. It's a commute. It's a commute, exactly. Minimum Pants dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everybody that Chat Gang ain't nothing to fuck with. We got Kicker there. He says, "Oh, I've seen those orcs on the internets. Love them." So, hey, maybe that's what we can talk about. We can talk about.
Thank you.
Maybe this is an orc stream now. It's an orc stream. Hey, it is Orktober. I think
maybe it's an orc stream.
Yeah.
Orktober.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So, like I was mentioning, kind of at the
got that out of the way.
Yeah, got that out of the way. I screamed "wah," I think a little bit, and redlined the microphone. So we've got
There you go.
I think my first point of interaction with you is actually seeing you sort of begin to develop that initial like heavy metal orc, and I mean, fuck yeah! but how did you? I guess
it's
before
it's like keep him next to me all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
but before we get there, how did you get into Warhammer? I mean, so people get to know you a little bit. So you, of course, as I mentioned, Sean, you're an American living in Australia. So you are in the upside down right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty close to just consider myself an Australian. I'm a refugee from a politically, what do you call it? It's a political asylum. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
No, but I've been here for like 5 years now, so I don't really know what America's like anymore. If somebody asked me what America's like, I'd just be like, I don't know, look at the news. I just know what like Western Sydney, Australia looks like, and that's where I live. Anyway, so I got into Warhammer.
Real quick before you talk about the real thing, Warhammer. Do you like Vegemite? Have you fully like become one of them now?
Fuck, I love Vegemite. So what's really interesting is I got into it because my oldest brother's best friend was from Australia, so every year we celebrated Australia Day as little kids.
Interesting.
And I probably had my first Vegemite when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I probably hated it, but then grew up, and now I'll just slather it on some toast with some butter, and it's good stuff. You can also use it to make gravy and do some other random shit too.
Yeah.
Where you need that like umami flavor, you can chuck some Vegemite in, and it probably does the job.
I Coach sent me a care package, and he made my children cry. But I did it wrong apparently because I wasn't.
Just what's funny about that is I saw that, and then my 2-year-old absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's funny to think that my 2-year-old will literally eat like a cracker with Vegemite slathered across it and just be like, yummy snack. You're like, I want some Vegemite. And then your kids are just like, get that away from me. Get that as far away from me as you could get something away from me right now.
I don't know if I shared that video publicly, but it is on my Facebook, and you just like the look of betrayal on my daughter's face as like the flavor registers.
Yeah.
Which is speaking of my daughter.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, talking about food and daughter, 2 things you should avoid on the internet. But I've been like just crushing ramen bowls because they were on sale for like 20 cents, the good ones, like the big, and my daughter comes up and she just goes like opens her mouth like a bird, and so like I'll do it, and she's got the slurp down. It's one of the most hilarious things ever.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay. All right. Warhammer. How'd you get into Warhammer?
Warhammer. So I first started getting into miniatures when I was probably about 6 years old. We used to go to all these like arts and crafts things because both my parents are artists, and that's like based on it. And the very first model I ever got, it was actually a pewter model of one of the cards from Alice in Wonderland. It had like a head and like arms and stuff, but it was pretty small. I remember trying to paint it with like my mom's craft paint. Did not go over well. And then like I grew up a little bit. My brothers actually moved out of the house when I was like 11 or 12 because they got older and they did their own shit. And then I kind of just started getting into 40K. So that was like the first thing I got into. Was I first got into 40K. I kind of started making friends from there. Like me and my best friend at the time had bought like the 3rd edition starter set, and it was like pretty brand new.
Wait, you can make friends in 40K?
I took the Marines.
I thought you only made enemies.
Well, you can have friends and then start playing 40K, and they become your enemies after.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it happens.
All right.
Yeah. It was one of those things too, where like in the 3rd edition set, if I remember properly, what was actually in the box, Marines were heavily favored. But then as soon as you went to go buy extra Dark Eldar stuff, that's when they started getting really good. So if you like chucked in some of the special weapons and characters, like Dark Lances would just like wreck their shit, and the Marines would just fall off the table.
The same thing happened with the Night Hunt box. I still remember you had the Evocators in the Night Hunt, and it really, you're like, oh, Stormcast are like OP, they're OP, and it was very heavily skewed towards that like elite army. But as you started collecting, it's like actually like 60 GGR are just the truth right now.
Yeah. As soon as you throw the Grimghast Reapers, you're like, all of a sudden, the Stormcasts suck.
Yeah.
Like, see you later. So that was like the progression, was just being like, okay, we're 12, 13-year-old kids trying to like scrape together allowances to get like extra boxes, and then watching it like change from like, here's my new box of Devastators, and like, oh sweet, it's like, here's my new Raider with a Dark Lance, and then it's like, oh, okay, that was fun. It's like, that was fun while it lasted. I'm getting screwed. And then it's always one of those things. It's like a tale as old as time, where you go like, I found girls, and I went to college and did all that shit, and I kept up with art the whole time. Like I went to school for art, and I kept doing arty things, and every once in a while I'd still pick up like white dwarfs and see what was going on, and still get into models every once in a while. I'm like one of those people that would just randomly buy a model and be like, oh, I'm gonna just like paint it. And
I mean,
it's probably in my parents'
yeah,
closet somewhere.
yeah. Actually, if you follow, I do recommend you follow Sean on Twitter. His name's in the title right there. It's Seanzor like 21 or something like that. You've got a pretty eclectic spread of models that you'll post. Like you posted the Primarch, the very famous one. You've got actually a couple of busts you've put up there. So like you can tell like you really like love the hobby. Can I ask what art you said?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You go.
Oh yeah, you saying like you just love the art and stuff like that, and so it's it's that passion. I think one of the things that makes Warhammer so awesome as like a hobby, as like a game even, is that like if I play a great video game, that kind of experience just kind of floats in the ether. If I paint my models, I have them, and there's this thing that I've created with my time, and so I think there's something special about the hobby. But I was going to ask, what type of art were you pursuing? Fine arts, general ed? What was it? Can I ask?
So I grew up. I grew up around potters. So like at the base of all of it, when I was little kid, I was around clay from like as soon as I could pop my fists into clay. So I started learning how to sculpt pretty early, and I actually I was pursuing through high school a lot of sculpting. I did a lot of ceramic sculpting. I think at my mom's house, probably in her yard somewhere, is still my like these big pots covered in faces. Now, I was really into like almost like gaunt, ghostly faces just covering everything, similar to like that Catacross cape. I'm like going back
awesome.
to my roots a little bit with that.
Yeah.
It's gonna keep going. I guarantee you. That's just like I said. That was the first layer, but like I have a pot, and it was my senior project in high school, and it literally is just covered in faces all the way everywhere. And I probably made about 50 or 60 faces and the crevices between other faces and sculpted more faces here and there. And that was like super into it. I went to school. I went to university, and my brothers also went to art school. And I went to his graduation. He literally got every award that he could get in art. Like he went to San Francisco Art Institute, and he literally walked away with like every medal around his neck, every award in his hand. And I was just like, and he's an insomniac. He stays up like most of the night working on art, honestly, like even to this day. His life is so centered around it. And I walked away from that being like, fuck, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can be committed in that same way. Art. And then I actually ended up going to psychology because I started getting into more like digital art and marketing. And that was kind of like where my head started going a little bit more. And so I was pursuing simultaneous. What's that?
I said I think this tracks a little bit because like it's visual, like the sort of our visual recognition and like getting the psychology of advertising is very visual media. Go on. Yeah.
And then so I got really into it's funny because I got into outdoor stuff. So I was getting into outdoor marketing and what that kind of looked like, and how we do advertisements up on billboards and that stuff. And then from that point, I actually was still studying fine arts, studying psychology, and then I started studying outdoor education. So I was actually like going into the wilderness and doing like that shit as like school. So let me. I was like all over the place through university, and then came back.
So at some point, I mean, this is like a logical. I mean, this is almost like making like a character's backstory, really, to like turn you into who you are now. Like, and you're like, so naturally, you're like, I'm getting into the wilderness. I'm going to move to the most dangerous place in the world, which is Australia, and just like see if I could truly survive the outdoors,
totally.
And like come back with all the faces of like their crazy snakes and spiders and stuff, and to advertise how badass you are. That's really it. Right?
Pretty much.
Sorry,
where's my trophy case? Shit.
Sorry with the tier 3 sub. 14 months. It is 14 years in Twitch time, and probably about 69 years in COVID-19 time. Thank you so much for that, and good evening. Good evening from Wisconsin to you there in Texas. Keep your mind healthy, he says. All right.
Good morning from Australia at solid 11:17 in the morning. That's how we're doing.
The sun will
and then I don't know.
not set
After
on
that,
Age
it was
of
just
Sigmar
like
content.
And never. Yeah, RantCast is eternal.
There
we're
you
just waking up. Everybody else is going to sleep.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like after university, all that stuff, it just turned into one of those things where I became like a guy with a day job, and I got back into all of it and started painting at nights and through 40K armies, and then I got into competitive Warhmachine, painted stuff for that. I got like probably my crowning achievement in my hobby world still is I got put in No Quarter magazine for Warhmachine because I got a what do you call it? Master Craftsman at Adepticon 2013, and that was like, oh, sweet. and then from there, I actually got a job in miniatures, and I designed a game and did a Kickstarter, and then moved to Australia and kind of left all that behind, and now I just do it for fun. Man, that's kind of the way to do it now.
It's crazy because I see a lot of like intersections and parallels between like kind of how I got to my place in life right now, and it's really funny like we digitally get along and jive with certain things. I'm like, oh yeah, yep. You're saying something. I'm just kind of like, yep, did that. Like without the hobby accolades, because I was forced to choose between like going into. I was very much into the art side, and like it sort of was able to also be in English and through high school and stuff. But going into college, like the thing I said in second grade is I want to write and illustrate my own books when I grow up. That was like what I wanted to do. So like for me, I was always growing up like doing both. When I went to college, I had to choose between either art or writing, and writing's always been like my main passion. And so like all of my art skills decayed, and my whole life sort of went on this weird like sort of like writing trajectory. And recently I've come back around to like just doodling. I can't call it sketching, I can't call it drawing, it's just doodling. You know, if you just little like tiny doodles. I've been drawing this like grim hoodie character that just like wears a hood and like goes around making really sardonic like things like I hate hiking, and he's standing like suicidally at the top of a cliff, and like just like these like really like sort of really black humor sort of sketches. So that's what I've been doing to get back into art, because I miss it. I used to be the guy who you'd come into the room and he was always drawing just a book, and I'm like, why don't I do that anymore? Like, and so I've just been doodling. Like, even as I sit here in RantCast, I'll be, you know, drawing spirals or swords,
chucking some stuff down.
Yeah.
What's really funny too, is I remember in school. I remember when I was like a kid, like a pretty basically up until about high school, I was the kid in class that could draw well. And I was always the kid that was like, when the teacher needed something drawn, she'd be like, hey, Sean, do you want to draw this on the board? Do you want to do this? I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, that's super sweet. Yeah, I remember in 7th grade, I finally hit the point where I felt like I got surpassed. And I felt so betrayed, though, because he learned how to draw from one of those How to Draw Dragon Ball Z characters books. So he would do the like circle and create like the armature for the thing and like do all that, and I would never do that. I never like when I learned to draw, like how you're actually supposed to like realistically put together a canvas and stuff. But I was like, nah, fuck that. Like, I draw from my mind. I draw on the paper. I don't put any armatures on there. This guy's a fucking phony. Fuck that. Like all that stuff. And then it was like, as I've gotten older, I've realized like, nah, I was just kind of like full-headed and like thought it was way better than it was. And realistically, I should have been going like, what you're doing, that's awesome. I want to do it too. Show me what you're doing. I want to learn it.
Well, I mean, that's a life lesson for Age of Sigmar and the hobby community in general, is like you see someone paint, or like I've got your Catacross cape up here on and like the reaction is very much the like, I see this, I'm like, oh, that's metal, how do I do that, you know? And maybe some of that's maturity, and maybe some of that's hard knocks. Maybe there's still people out there who have that initial reaction that you had back in grade school or 7th grade or whatever. See, I was always
comfortable. It's so easy to do when you get in.
Yeah.
Like when you're getting into art, it's really easy to look at everybody else and be like, fuck that guy, fuck that guy, fuck that guy, fuck that guy. Like, oh, they're so good, like whatever, like that sort of stuff. Then you realize that like at the end of the day, where they got, that's actually just hard work. It's actually just literally time put into it in a meaningful way to get there.
Well, that's the
And it's
practice with
like
the
you can
purpose.
look up to somebody for keeping that motivation of doing it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't look up to people because they like are magical, like talented people that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They had to harvest that and like put the time in.
Well, one of my sort of peers in like some of the writing groups I'm in likes to say she hates calling artists and art. I don't. When I use the term art, just for everyone watching, you may not be, I mean anything creative. For me, art is writing, it's painting, it's sculpting, it's filmmaking, it's making video games. Like art simply means a craft, right? Like that's the root, artisan art. Like that's the root of the word.
Yeah.
Like basically, or to use Charles Bukowski, anything can be art because art is something done with, anything done dangerously is art, right? Like,
yeah.
Or
this is not a pipe.
He's got another one with style is the meaning of everything. So anyway, like I used to, I was always comfortably not the best artist, even though I was the one doodling all the time. But like kind of like how you talked about, like I never used like the armatures either. I always went with I loved Cam DeLeo, who did a lot of the tool art and stuff. And that was like got me into like Edvard Munch, and that got me into like a bunch of the surrealists, Geiger or Giger. Depending on what the correct pronunciation is. I believe it's Giger. Got me into like a lot of that weird stuff. So like, Salvador, Salvador Dali, and so I like went like way into like the surrealist stuff. So I completely bypassed like figure drawing basically until independent study and like late stuff, and by that time I was already doing these like crazy like oil. Like these crazy oil like spreads with like
big paintings and stuff.
Lady like in the moon, and like she basically looks like the Ringu lady because it's such a rough, crude, like sort of not even not a realistic form, but a representation of the form of a woman, like with her hair dripping down from the moon to become the ocean, and a person like the waves are crashing into a tree and making this tree, and then someone's trying to climb the tree that is waves to get out of it, and they're just drowning, and like that was my big project that got put on display. That was my huge project that got put on display.
That sounds righteous, dude.
Yeah, see, that was my crowning achievement in art, was that portrait.
That's like your magnum opus right there. Is that?
Yeah. Like
and you're like, now I just got to live up to that from here.
I've tried to sketch it, like, because I know the concept, and like it had the it was on a wide rectangular canvas, but it had a circular composition. So you're supposed to kind of spot the moon because it's the brightest point, and then you'd follow her hairs down into the ocean, and then the ocean would come over to this tree, and then you'd find that the person's drowning, but they're kind of reaching toward the moon, and so you had this like circular composition, and I've tried to resketch it. I'm like, this looks nothing like that painting, and my grandma's got like a photo of it somewhere. But I'm like, man, I suck now. Like, I'm just like, but it's like you said, like it's, and I take this as a point of encouragement. And this is what my friend says is she hates to use the term talented. She likes to use the term skilled. Because talent,
skilled.
Talent feels like an innate setting. Like you either have talent or you don't. Talent has, it's like being a sorcerer versus being a wizard in Dungeons and Dragons. Like talent feels innate. Well, the thing is like innate is just kind of like that. Innate talent is where you start on your sort of journey to get good at something. You can, if you're like, okay, cool, you start out life with a talent for drawing, so you're up 3 rungs on the ladder over somebody. But if you don't harness that and keep working with it, you will never like ascend the ladder. Whereas that person who can't draw a stick figure buys the anime book, figures it all out, puts in the time, just really wants to be good, practices with a purpose, they'll ascend beyond you. Just like writing, like I had.
And
go ahead.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is like we're both parents here, so we've seen this kind of happen. But I think one of the things that's a big misconception, and it's something that I've strove for being a parent, is that with my daughter, whenever I get the chance to, or whenever there is a chance, like I'm just there to say like what you want to do with this marker and this pen, like, here's some paper to do it. Just make sure it's not like on the walls or like on our floor, but like do it, because even if she has an innate talent for drawing because her family's done it or something like that, don't think you can get any further than being, it's like a 3-year-old gymnast. Like, that's really great that you're 3 years old and you can be a gymnast, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get an Olympic gold. It just means that you have the baseline for someone to start teaching you from there. And if you actually put that in front of them, like if you actually give them a canvas to work on, they're going to get better.
Right.
If you just go, oh yeah, they're talented, they're going to get there in 18 years, it's fine. You're going to get somebody who doesn't do that thing. Like, it's not going to happen. As you know, with my daughter, she actually might not be that skilled in drawing or painting inherently, but because she's had enough time sitting there just doodling with her stuff, you know, we get back from school like, oh, she learned how to draw a face. She's 2 years old, and she understands the pieces that go together to make a face. She knows that there needs to be 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. She can portray that on a page. It's not great yet, but if she keeps doing it, she'll get better at it. But if she doesn't, she's gonna do something else with her time. And maybe she's gonna pick up a phone and learn how to be really good at pressing buttons on YouTube. That doesn't. It's not just because talent. You don't just become an artist from just talent.
Right.
You got to start there and go from there.
Right. And you have that the sort of Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, right? Like, you know, you're not really good at something until you've put 10,000 hours in on it, which is, you know, an arbitrary big value. But the point is like, you
even more than that, meaningful 10,000 hours.
Right.
You can just do for 10,000 hours, like, you know, I don't know, somebody could sit there and like do a jumping rope for 10,000 hours and they're going to get strong. But if you sit there and you keep tripping for 10,000 hours and you keep like not being mindful of what's going on, you're going to be shitty for, you know, another 10,000 hours until you stop and go, wow, I'm not doing this right.
Yeah.
You know? If you spend 10,000 hours in every hour, you go like, oh, fuck, the thing I've done for the last hour is not good. Right. If you can't look at the end of 10,000 hours and hate everything you did for that first 10,000 hours, you didn't do it right. Like, I hate everything that I've painted like a year ago because I think it looks like shit.
Well,
I just think it needs improvement.
Well, they become snapshots in time of where you were a year ago, and I find those to become encouraging. I don't know. It's interesting because the purposeful application of the skill and over a course of time really is a super worthy part. If you play 100 games of Age of Sigmar and all you ever do is push your models forward and roll dice, you might never learn something that the person puts in like 10 games and they're always trying to like play it different or figure out, you know, like strategize around it. And, you know, well, what happens if I attack from this angle?
They're being mindful of objectives and
No, I think that
if you're thinking about how to play a scenario, a big difference from moving models forward.
Right. And then you're going to find that consistent in art, in writing, in filmmaking, whatever your craft is. AOS coach, Sean has all the talent. Mad props to his skills. Thanks for all your help, bud. So how's it going, coach?
You're welcome.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
So
try and do cool stuff. Hopefully everybody likes my cool stuff I do.
I love it, man. Speaking of like so you have this talent. You went on a sojourn. You ended up in Australia fighting outback beasts to prove that you were the best at outdoors as well. And you end up in Age of Sigmar. I feel that's just probably a natural progression. You came here because we have the coolest models and the best community, right?
I think the biggest thing about it is community, right? It's like I moved to Australia, and like, you know, I came from Warhmachine. Like, I don't know, it was 2 months or 3 months or something like that. There's this big uproar about like what Warhmachine was to a lot of people. Like, I've made so many lifelong friends from Warhmachine, and I think I would have made them too if I was in Age of Sigmar or 40K or stuff like that. I just happen to be in Warhmachine.
I like have to be on general brand. Hobby. Sorry. I'm not actually disparaging people's. I mean, except for 40K. I'm disparaging 40K players, but everybody else, you're cool.
Even still, people in 40K make lifelong friends that
I know.
could be like, the best men at their weddings and stuff like that.
See, that was
and
a point.
Like I had a friend from.
Oh, go ahead. I was just saying that was a point in time where I had the high
like
road.
I had a friend
and
from Warhmachine.
Totally took the low road.
Yeah, took the low road. Yeah, it's like my first friend in Australia was from Warhmachine. It's like my first, the person who actually married my wife and I was actually the person at the wedding was a friend from initially Warhmachine. So it's like you have this, you still create these connections regardless of whatever game, and people from the outside might not understand it, and people from the outside don't understand Age of Sigmar too. There's people that talk shit about it constantly, and they just are not opening their eyes to say like, this is actually a really open-ended and amazing universe that you can do literally whatever you want to in here and find a way to justify it. I can make orcs that are carrying around guitars and tell you that they're in Shaman, the realm of metal, and they're able to like smith guitars from Aether magic that they've taken. And then there's also Gurian metal involved as well that makes it primal. And that's how they're able to make a mechanical maw crushers, because it's from Gur. And so it's got primal aspects of the earth directly into the metal, and that's what makes it go crazy. That's how it comes to life. And you're like, yeah, okay. But you're like, yeah, that's what they've given us with Age of Sigmar is you can, it's almost like when somebody tries to lie to you and they come up with ways that seem convincing, and if they go for long enough, you might actually get swayed. That's like the universe of Age of Sigmar, is you can effectively lie for long enough that it's actually correct.
Well, I mean, that's what the Age of Myth is it's a bunch of potential lies about what was there before. It's called the Age of Myth, as a myth, basically made up, mythological. And so it's like, who are you to tell me that this other thing didn't exist there? Like, it is, Age of Sigmar is the blank canvas world. I mean, that's for better or for worse. Some people want more details filled in, and I think those details are filling in with each battle tome and each, malign portents, and now we're getting, we had Wrath and Rapture and Wrath of the Everchosen, and we're about to get this Broken Realms one. So that's, that canvas is filling in, but it's so wide, it's so big a universe that you really can, infuse it with whatever you want. If you're good enough at bullshitting, you can make it work, and I love it. No, I mean, that's why I love it. That's why I love it. By the way, Meph, beat Techless today with Bone Splitters as Drakfoot. Nice. Get wrecked.
Dope.
This
is the orc episode, so that's very fitting, right?
Yeah. We were just about to talk about his orc army. Drakfoot's low key. Oh my gosh. Bone Splitters are low key still pretty potent. I don't think people really experimented with them too much because I look at the transition of the gameplay. Right. Yeah, exactly. He auto-dispelled the wrong spell. Get wrecked.
It was just like, get wrecked. I mean, that's the big thing, right? Is that you just, if everybody's playing Big Wa, and objectively from the outside, it's one of those things where it's just strong inherently for all the abilities that it gives you. And so it's also what everybody expects you to play. And so sometimes when you play things like Drakfoot, that's when you could be a meta breaker. And you do stuff that people don't expect, and all of a sudden they're like, holy shit, how'd this guy get to do that? And it's like, because I'm not playing the thing that you expect me to take, motherfucker.
Right. Well, known commodities. I mean, people become practiced against known commodities. Yeah. And then when you don't have those known commodities anymore, you can exploit that. Actually, Tom and Brendan were both talking about that on Warhammer Weekly yesterday, about how like they like to be that sort of, sometimes exist in that innovative space where like you don't know what I'm bringing and the kind of like sick tech I got. But that's the Johnny Spike mentality. Yeah. So
and that's one thing that was really interesting about Warhmachine, is that because they used the 2-list format, you could have a known commodity as 1, have your own crazy bullshit thing as number 2.
Wait.
And people are like, oh, well, I know that this matchup is good against 1, and so they picked that, and you picked number 2, and they picked their pairing to go with 1, and you're like, surprise!
I like that mental.
What I got.
I like that sort of mental that mental game. Wait, Warmachine had a 2-list format? I'm just finding this out. I'm this many years old when I heard about this.
That was the competitive format was a 2-list format. So pretty much every time you had 2 warcasters and 2 separate 50-point lists. And so honestly, I would say half of being good at that game was understanding how to play your opponent at the beginning game and understanding what your matchups looked like, basically what your green, orange, red, yellow matchups like. How do I play this other person first, play the game second? Mm-hmm. So if I can put down two lists that a person is like, I don't know how to cope with what's going on here exactly, you could get somebody that way. And then sometimes it would also be like rock, scissors. It'd be like somebody would put down effectively, something that's super shooting heavy. And you go like, okay, well, either of my lists are good against shooting heavy lists. So he's going to have to pick the other one. So then I pick which one of my 2 lists is better against that other one that isn't shooting heavy.
Yeah. So in NashCon, actually, it has a 2-list format, and it's one of my favorite tournaments I've been to. Like, it's 2 lists. I love that. For me, that's where you can really, like, you can take your cookie cutter, your meta, your kind of like your safe list, but then you really get that opportunity to experiment with that second list. Now, obviously, like, part of the difficulty of that is traveling with sometimes 2 distinct armies. Was that the same in Warmachine? Well, like, you have like actually 2 armies, or is it the point they're not playing the same level models that makes it feel more feasible? How's that breakdown?
I mean, it kind of depends. It kind of depends on the army that you're playing. I was playing, so pretty much the entire time I played Warmachine, I played Trollbloods. At least that's what I was playing competitively. And I think that Trollbloods, to play their competitive list at that time, had a lot of models, and still I could fit them all in one of the Battle Foam Privateer press bags. And it's about the same size as like a Battle Foam 720. So it's like something that you could take with you.
Yeah, my buddy's got the Privateer press one because it was on sale. I guess maybe you don't know this, but what the heck happened to Warmachine? It feels like the game just disappeared one day. Privateer Press is still around, aren't they?
There's a lot.
Okay, well, okay, maybe that's
there's a lot of depth to it, but I mean, probably like from the outside, without getting into the real details of it, the main part of it was that they moved into a new era of the game. They moved into a 3rd edition. With that 3rd edition, there were a lot of changes that were not accepted very, very well with the community as a whole. And so a lot of the community felt very disenfranchised. And then at the same time as that is happening, you also have Age of Sigmar that's starting to get a bit more serious. Because when Age of Sigmar first came out, it was like a giant joke within a Warmachine community. Like, look at these fucking stupid rules. Oh, like if it's dark outside and you roll a 6, that means that you auto crit, or like, whatever, right? It was like, I can't even remember the Age of Sigmar rules. I just remember there were ones that were like time of day base, and whether it was dark or light in the room, and it was stuff that was obviously like meant to kind of take the piss and have people talking about it. And then then Warmachine all of a sudden hits this 3rd edition, has some bumps in the road, and Age of Sigmar has like started rewriting some rules and kind of refining back away from that ridiculous stuff and being like, actually, here's a game with points and you can play it competitively and stuff. And so a lot of people were like, all right, well, let's start paying attention to Age of Sigmar. The models are pretty sweet. Guild Ball started coming out too, so there were a lot of Warmachine players that went over to Guild Ball at that time. They just had kind of the bottom drain out from underneath them when they started to make a few mistakes. So and then you get to the point where they're at now, and they really can't re-grab a lot of the same people again, because they feel disenfranchised. Yeah.
Once you alienate a fan base, it's really hard to recapture that. I mean, Warhammer went through the same thing with the world that was with Old Hammer, quote unquote, or 8th edition to Age of Sigmar. Most of those 8th ed players are just now, 5 years later, giving the game a shot. I think Cities of Sigmar forced some of their hands, but but I mean, they it was a drip feed, just a trickle of them coming back. As there's no, once that mass exodus comes, they don't really like come back in that same capacity.
Yeah, there's not like an exodus back. It's like we'll get 2 a month or whatever at best. And you have to have like a big draw. Like at least Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, the draw is the models. At the end of the day, like everybody's looking at these models going like, I don't know how for an army game you beat these models on a 1-for-1 basis.
Well, not
without
all of us
investing the time and energy.
Not all of us can green stuff on sick ass faces onto a cape like this over here. Some of us need to rely on the inherent aesthetics of a model. You know, that professionals
and they still look great.
Yeah.
They look great.
Yeah, real quick.
And especially if you want to put a model on the army, or a model on the table, that's how you're going to get there.
Yeah. Real quick here, we got some action in chat, gang. So Dreamer bragging about having murdered Techless today. Hey, how's it going, D6? How's it going, Elf Joe? And then Dreamer immediately parlayed that into you and Elf sending the big stabbas. Elf's drool, split his drool, and this is amazing. Keep the gloves above the belt. It's all in good fun, everybody. No, this is see, I don't know. I like the I was kind of thinking about like the Grand Alliance thing, and obviously this is Mephisto's Merry Month of Death. I was thinking about the Grand Alliance thing and how 40K has it to a lesser extent with Imperial and Xenos and so on and Chaos, but it doesn't feel quite as resonant as saying death, destruction, chaos, order. Like those are very broad stroke concepts that I can tell any player for the most part with a remote interest in like say either fantasy or just like kind of tabletop or gaming in general, right? Because they might not even be a fantasy nerd to like want to jump in on Age of Sigmar, because you can show them a KO army and they would like their brain would twist is like, is this even fantasy, right? But you can go like you give those broad stroke concepts and people just like they get it. They know what death and destruction are. They know what chaos and order mean. You know, and I think that that's a really good draw for Age of Sigmar. Maybe I've cast or cursed it because there's been speculation that third edition might get rid of that. Might get rid of Grand Alliances, but who knows? So I
think they'll still see. I think they'll still have the Grand Alliances, but then I think what they're more talking about is you just can't choose a like you can't choose anything that doesn't have an allegiance, right? Like something has to have a faction allegiance that you go to. Basically, just targeting Sam Morgan, and they're making sure that Sam Morgan and Darren Watson can't write lists anymore. It's basically that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what that targeted hate. No, Sam Morgan's got a really solid grip on actually like Grand Alliance death. Maybe I should have brought him on this month. Anyway, he seems like a hot get. I don't want to bother him.
Well, I don't know. Like, it depends on which one you get on each day, right? It's like whether you're getting
the haiku,
I don't know,
Sam
haiku
Morgan.
one or
like there's
Marxist one or like which one?
I don't know. Like there's a new one, like something about the battle didn't happen, Sam Morgan. Like there's so many burner accounts with that man. I don't like how do you get that? How do you pin him down? No, I'm kidding. So yeah, like Grand Alliance. Did you? So you're playing orcs. Did you jump in with orcs? Was that like because you were playing the trolls before, and you kind of so you come into Age of Sigmar and you're like
So
this is
40K. I actually to be honest, the main reason that drove me to orcs was not anything in 40K. It was more about Warcraft, to be entirely honest. So one of the first models that I bought as an Age of Sigmar model was the Weird Knob Shaman, the Orc army, and I turned it into Gul'dan. That was just the first thing I did was I turned it into Gul'dan. I put spikes coming out of his back. I painted him up with like green energy around him, and I was like, this is sweet. So then the next thing I bought was the Foot War boss, and I turned him into Garrosh, and I was like, okay, cool. He's now like Garrosh inspired. And then I was like, all right, well, do I make like a full army out of it? And and then I just started buying more and more. And then did like one of the and then I hated the Ardboys, so I started making Ardboys out of the Blood Bowl models, and I painted them in that red and blue, like, because the idea was that it was red and blue for like for Warcraft, because like Alliance and Horde. Anyway, I was like, this is actually going to drag on for so long, and I'm kind of losing interest in it. And then I was just like, what if I just like infuse something that I really like into it that isn't Warcraft, where I'm hit and miss about, like, I'm like, oh, sometimes I really love Warcraft, sometimes I want nothing to do with it because at times it's taken over my life, whatever. Like, but something that's super like permeated my life and I love. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost
lose time with it.
I lost some important years to World of Warcraft there. There was a fell in with an RP server for like a year, progression rating on either side of that, and like it was, yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Warcraft 2. The thing is, I love Warcraft 1 and 2, the video games. Warcraft 2 is one of those first games I like played that I just like kind of began to know to think I might be a nerd, you know?
You're in.
Like, you know, cuz like we grew up in a period of time where like yes, you had to pursue having a PC or a, like, you know, like having a computer to play like PC games and stuff like that. But just, you know, someone's dad or someone's uncle would have a Nintendo or at least that's my age group, where like someone's dad would just have a Nintendo and that'd be like, okay, yeah, they'd play like a game, but they weren't like gamers or nerds yet. That didn't come.
Yeah.
That didn't really develop yet. Warcraft was right around the time where I'm like, I might be a nerd. Like, I was just like I was obsessed with Warcraft 2, and I always played orcs, by the way. Humans can get effed in the A. But the Battle of Hillsbrad, like, come on. There was oh man, that was some good times. So I was like a natural lock for when World of Warcraft came out because I had already played Ultima. I don't know, is your audio still working? I had played Ultima.
Give me like 45 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay. I can easily finish this tangent off. I had like I was a natural lock for World of Warcraft. I actually got into the beta for it because I've been playing EverQuest. I had experience with Ultima and Dark Age of Camelot, so it was like I got into the beta for that. And it was like that game was weaponized against me, it felt, to just like really, really like capture me. And like as I rolled Alliance actually the first time because all of my friends were playing Alliance and I begged for them to go Horde. And so I played what you play what your friends play. It's true of wargaming. It is true of so many things. If you have a decision between League of Legends, Dota 2, you know, Heroes of New Earth, or Heroes of the Storm, you'll probably go with the one your friends play the most often. So that's awesome. Giant wasp just flew in here. So you probably go with what you did. So we did Alliance at first, but eventually I was able to coax them back over to the Horde side, you know, and it's been history since. Yeah, the Murder Hornet has arrived.
Good now.
It's true.
Back.
I've imported some of Australia. There's a Murder Hornet in here. You missed that while you were gone.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's somewhere. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Burn it down.
I only
burn the whole house down. It's done.
Truly hate wasps and hornets. Like, I just want to burn it all. Like, I don't mind bees. Bees are kind of like cute, but wasps are bastards.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see the eyes, the mandibles, or the stingers, get the fuck out. Just fire.
Yeah, wasps are no good.
Yeah. Also, they're way more aggressive. Uh-oh. Hey, Manzak, it's been a little while. Hopefully he knows to hop back in the thing. So the thing I was saying is, like, you tend to play what your friends play. There he is. You tend to play what your friends play. One thing I really, really love about orcs is orcs tend to be orcs. You know, like, I mean, the Warcraft orc is actually rather different from the Warhammer orc because it had to be legally distinct. If you know anything about the origins of how Warcraft actually came to be, it was originally going to be a Warhammer licensed a Games Workshop game, or at the time where they still Citadel. It was originally supposed to be their game, but relationships soured, so they had to copy the homework but change it just enough to not get sued. They did that, and that actually kept Games Workshop from getting out of the digital market for like a full decade more. On top of it, they dabbled a little bit with like Dark Omen, for like the play, like a couple.
Yeah, for sure.
They dabbled a little bit, but it took them a long time to dive in on like Total Warhammer. What was the awesome 40K one?
Yeah.
The awesome 40K.
Space Marine. I remember Space Marine was actually just a sweet game.
Yeah,
it was just a fun hack and slash game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it took them.
Dude, Coach, calm down with the undead orcs over here, bro. Calm down.
Where are the undead orcs? Yeah. Yeah. So,
dude, don't talk about that yet. That's gonna be my secret project, man.
Yeah. So, why isn't this is so much going on right now? Warhammer Age of Reckoning. Yes, war. So yeah, war happened and so on and so forth.
Chat blew up.
Yeah, chat. Everyone's showing up. EQ Clan Crushbone Orcs or bust, I think. The Emperor Crushbone. Nagash hates lizardmen, especially Kroak. Nagash is ambivalent towards Kroak, for they are two immortal beings for whom death is but a dream and not a reality. I don't think that they... Kroak is a nuisance at best. The way this wasp is a nuisance, but ultimately I will destroy it. Or just outlive it because I can ignore it until it dies from the cold that's about to happen.
Yes,
all right.
Indeed.
All right, so yeah, so you actually so you were talking about how like you had the Warcraft inspiration coming over, and so you kind of jumped into Age of Sigmar with orcs,
and then so I start just doing it for fun, for hobby stuff, because I was like, I liked the models. I wanted to make Warcraft inspired orcs, and I thought it was neat. And then I just went down this road where like I was saying, is like I wanted to be inspired by a thing that I always felt inspired by. And so I went to music, and I was like, how do I take music and make it my muse for an army? Mm-hmm. How do I just literally distill down the things that I'm into?
I feel like
into a thing that I can make an army.
Was this as recent as last year? Or is my memory hazy on this? Last year, or 2 years maybe. This feels like it was relatively recent.
Honestly, it was the beginning. The beginning of this year is when I really started it. Like I kind of dabbled at the end of last year, but at the beginning of this year was when it started, and then it didn't. I know it feels like forever.
I know.
To be,
I'm
like,
bad.
To be honest,
I'm bad at time in general. Like my brain doesn't. Speaking of like the art thing, I'm always in my right brain for the most part, and shifting over to that left brain where logic and time and directions are is it's a conscious effort. And I don't usually do that effort because, I'm going on like 2 to 4 hours of sleep most days, and you gotta conserve your energy.
Yeah, you gotta work with what you got.
Yeah. So like time is just like super elusive. Man, I feel like it's just like I feel like it was like forever ago that you were kind of like you were having like some basing. You're like you weren't sure like about the bass and stuff like that, and then like it was just like dawned on you to like put it on the amplifier, and you doodle up this whole like amplifier rig system and
put it on the fucking speakers.
Yeah, just put it on the speakers. Well, yeah. So
no,
I'm sorry. I cut you
and
off,
what's actually really interesting is I got super into competitive card games. So when my daughter was born, all of a sudden I put all of my modeling stuff away, and I was playing Magic every Friday, and then playing Magic Online while I had like a sleeping kid and playing Hearthstone and stuff. And that was what happened in the fallout from not wanting to paint my Warcraft orcs. And then I finally hit the point where I was like, fuck, I'm kind of over playing Magic all the time. Like I'll admit I was doing all right. Like I was doing pretty good, but I still was just like, it's not what I want to do all the time. I need to get back into modeling again. So yeah, I then just looked at a war boss on a Maw Crusher, and I was like, how do I make that like a rock god? Literally, just like if the other orcs looked to him, they'd be like, this is the fucking dude. And that's where it started. Like it was just like, and then how do I coalesce a lot of things? So like, there's a lot of different artists that probably have portrayals of some aspect in there, in Krosh, my war boss, that are not, it's not like one specific role icon that is there, but he's got pieces of a lot of stuff. Like honestly, if you just looked at him straight on, he'd probably look like, I don't know, Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder with short hair and a hat on or something like that. But there's just a lot of stuff. But Trevor doesn't play guitar, he might, I don't know, but he's generally a singer. So
you had one that was like a little Slaanesh inspired too, as I recall, right? Like because you or Lemmy.
Well, I've got Lemmy. I have literally like Lemmy as an orc, and then the other guy, he's kind of Slaanesh, but I think we sorted it out that he actually just looks like a roided out Devin Thompson. So like this dude, he's got like the bald head, and he's just like wailing away on a guitar. And then if you kind of like look, there's a picture of Devin Thompson where he's doing the same thing. So it's just like, well, we got roided out Devin Thompson, we got Lemmy, and then I've got my drum set, which is still kind of like, I still have a few things I need to do to finish that, but that's all Mecha Maw Crusher. On the back of the Mecha Maw Crusher is a drum set, and there's two little goblins on there, and one of the goblins is based on Travis Barker in like rough ways, and then the other one just kind of looks like a little lackey.
So for you, do you think like sort of finding that outside inspiration? I like to talk about people putting their personality on the table when we play Age of Sigmar. I think that's one of the things that makes this game so great. Was that finding that outside inspiration just like was that like a it all clicked type moment? Was like yes, like that was the
Yeah, I think so. What I think is really interesting about Age of Sigmar and the models is that it's very easy to look at the models for Age of Sigmar and view them as if they already have the information attached to them. But when I view Age of Sigmar models, I generally view them the same way I view a white canvas, where I go, I need to create the inspiration to put on what I want to be doing here. So even like with a lot of my busts that I'm working on right now, even though I'm not modifying anything on there, I'm not there to just take the bust exactly as it is. Like I have a purpose or a focus.
Yeah, like flesh tones might, just to use a simplified example, flesh tones might not read as flesh tones when you're seeking for your inspiration. You're like, oh, like this is a humanoid, and then like we try to go towards flesh tones. You're like, nah, like this is gonna be metallic, and this is gonna, like you kind of look to.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with that, literally over the last 2-3 months especially, I've really just been like, how I want to learn how to paint. I want to learn how to paint like Caravaggio. I want to learn like Tenebrism and like heavy chiaroscuro art. And so I was like, if I'm gonna level up my skill and I'm gonna push that, then I need to like pull myself all the way back and start from scratch, but using that as my muse. And so I looked up, how did Caravaggio paint? What do people use as their kind of basis for that? And then I learned, well, generally Caravaggio would take his white canvases, lay down a layer of ochre on top of it, add all of his highlights, add all of his blacks, and then glaze in flesh tones. And I was like, well, I guess that's how I'm going to start learning how to paint. Is like with these busts, I spray them all in like a ochre, like a red ochre type color, and then work on my highlights, work on my shadows, start glazing in, start sketching in more colors, and then refine from there. And it's just like, I'm going to do that. And it's going to take me time to get better that way. But I think at the end of it, like, I could think of myself in 5 to 10 years, people will be like, that dude has the capability to effectively replicate Tenebrism, chiaroscuro, things similar to Caravaggio. That's like the type of light control that I want to feel like I have personally. then when people look at my art, they go, I can see that being an influence.
Well, chiaroscuro is the harsh light to dark, right? Like it's the really abrasive.
Yeah, just the fact that within a gradient of light, white and black both exist, and everything in between is there. So like, I mean, literally chiaroscuro is just light and dark. But it's just like when you see the sphere, and it's just using blacks and white and gray, and you can tell that it's a sphere on 2 dimensions. That's chiaroscuro.
Right.
Chiaroscuro.
Yeah, had to have a teaching moment there for folks that might not be familiar. Yeah, I mean, it's really about light is a lot of the stuff. So I mean, it's really cool because you're kind of approaching it like this is that practicing with a purpose thing that kind of goes all the way back to the origin of the episode, or rather your sort of experience with art to begin with. I mean, it's never. I think another good lesson here is it's never too late to sort of like deprogram and like pick up a new skill. You don't always fall all the way back down to the bottom of the ladder. You know,
there's still some stuff there. Yeah. Like, I mean, I probably have at least 2 to 3 brands worth of full ranges of paint, and scale 75 is what sits on my desk right now. But I think I have a decent amount of GW and P3 and various other paints around. But I pulled everything else out of my palette and just said, these are 9 colors that I'm going to use, and they're the same 9 colors that Caravaggio used on his palette. And so I was like, all right, that's what it is. It's ochre, red ochre, red ochre, yellow ochre, basically lead yellow, lead white, carmine red / cadmium red, black, which is ivory black, and then sienna type color, and then verdigris, which is like a teal blue. And just trying to do everything with those colors, nothing else. Everything has to get mixed, and it leads me down good places because it's like, I want to put a blue type color on here. It's like, well, maybe you can't do it the way that you thought you would do it. You have to trick the eye to think it reads as blue with a black and a gray and that sort of thing. So it's very interesting. It's a challenge.
So why is Caravaggio the inspiration? Why is that the one you keep kind of coming back
to? I think like Caravaggio is really interesting to me because there's an interesting side of him, without going too deep into art history and like everything about Caravaggio. But like, you could pull the same sort of things from someone else like Gentileschi or any of that sort of Baroque period. Right. Well, and even Rembrandt's a little bit more interesting because he fell a little bit more in line with what people were expecting. What was cool about Caravaggio, or like, there's that certain level in me where I always like the drop kicks and the rebels and that sort of stuff. And Caravaggio had this interesting sort of life story, and it's been pieced together, and not all of it might be true, but he spent most of his adult artist life on the run from the church because he, through various different he killed a couple people. He was in trouble with the law constantly. He had a really bad temper, which they believe was probably because he used mostly lead paints, and he also was doing all this like weird quasi camera obscura stuff to be able to actually get his to start his painting. So he'd have a model in front of him, have a light coming out of the roof, reflect it back onto his canvas.
He's messing with the light itself. Like, he was actually like trying to get unnatural angles with lights so that he could paint the thing. Because I mean, they didn't exactly have like studio lighting in that day. You had
so he'd have like a light in the roof, and then he'd reflect that back onto his canvas, and he would get an impression that would last for about 30 minutes. So in about 30 minutes, he would have to, on his canvas, just slap on all of the general kind of ideas, which is where that style comes from, is to start with brown, and then go all the highlights and all of the shadows, and then see you later, model, I got it, you're fine, I can just do the rest based upon skin tone, basically upon knowledge, because as soon as you have the light and the shadow, it's all glazing in midtones and that sort of stuff. But then anyway, so Caravaggio himself, always on the run, creating absolute amazing pieces. Like literally to this day, you look back and they're fucking masterpieces. Like something like Julius slaying Holofernes, and you look at that picture, and both Caravaggio's and Slaaneshi's are amazing pieces, both, because it's just a very, it's quite a moving, an impactful piece, because you have, especially at the time, you have a woman that's literally beheading a man for wronging her, and I believe it was also her family. Was the story is, she's basically stepping up to take vengeance for her family.
We actually I have an episode.
He's on the run creating these pieces that were insane.
No, there's an episode that that Andrew Yells did. It's technically on my YouTube, but it was his show for the Adepticon at home. We talked about this painting actually.
Okay.
So I think it's fantastic that
he's right on. Yeah.
He's also one of those hobbyists he's just completely about the light, and like it's pretty much all he's ever thinking about. The highlights and the lowlights and where to put the light on the figure, and he like you could put the light here if you feel like putting it here, and then just paint it that way, and like so he's very into that. And so I find it interesting that you share a similar eye actually to him.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is that has been my focus to the point where like, and let this be a lesson to anyone that's watching, or anybody that listens to this, is like anybody that's in the hobby that you are looking, that you see their models and you think that they're really good, there's almost guaranteed a way to reach and talk to them in some way, as long as it's genuine and like meaningful. Like you're not just like, oh, your stuff is sweet, just tell me how to do what you do. But if you go like, okay, so I'm approaching like this, if you were in this exact situation, can you lead me in a direction, or can you tell me what you would kind of approach it as? And more than likely, you'll be able to get something, whether it means subscribing to a Patreon to find stuff. That might be the avenue that you have to follow. But if you care and you actually want to find out, you're gonna be willing to accept some of that cost. And that's been like where I've been at, is like I will literally get in contact with whoever I think I might help me on my path and see if I can get anything. If I can't get anything sweet, like that's fine. I understand that anybody else is trying to fit like hobby time in their very like time poor lives that we all have. But at the same time, if you do get a little bit of time out of them and you are able to at least glean a little bit of information, some of the information that you get from other people is just good, just different perspective. Like, yo, dude, I'm trying to do this non-metallic metal and apply this atmosphere of like this really forward-facing light, but the metal is really textured and really weird, and every picture I find doesn't portray it properly. If you were in this, like, do you have any references that you might think of, or what would you do? And it's like, oh, here, I can show you this, or like, oh, I did this one, this is kind of what I would do, or whatever. Or you can find examples of paintings that people have done, and more than likely you'll be able to find a way to pull off what you're trying to do. But some stuff's really fucking weird. Like even when you take a flashlight to a model, you shine it in a specific way, you catch the light studies, and then you try and replicate it. You're like, yeah, but this is a plastic model. It's not chrome or whatever that I'm trying to replicate. So yeah, it becomes a very interesting process to get to the point where you can portray all these things in miniature form and look convincing. But there's probably someone who's tried to do it before, and they're more than likely reachable.
Stand on the backs of giants a little bit, right? Like, hey, Fluke Skywalker, how's it going, my friend? Welcome to RantCast. A lot of chat gang showing up tonight. I love it.
That's good.
So, drawing inspiration from kind of like,
everything,
right?
Anything and everything.
So, we'll come back to that in just a second. But this is a common thread I think people will notice throughout this episode, because this is actually kind of like the secret topic of tonight is drawing inspiration from everything.
Yes. Yes.
But now you've done the orc project. You kind of, and you're onto this. I've shown the Catacross. I'm gonna leave this fine art up for a moment longer. But I was showing the Catacross model throughout, and if you haven't seen the Catacross because you're listening on like Anchor or Spotify, just follow him again on Twitter. Follow this man's hobby journey.
It's just Catacross on top of Arkan's Mount. It's nothing that crazy. Don't worry.
Yeah. Apart from the green,
I don't know. Maybe it is crazy. It might be crazy.
Moonkian like streaming faces on the back, which are metal as hell. But now you're moving on to this OBR project, and you confess to me something secretly, and I don't know if you want to share that about like death feels like a little bit like a homecoming, maybe, or like you're feeling really jazzed about the project. What were your words to me?
But it's interesting because I always felt like death is more like where I should be drawing a lot of my inspiration, mostly because it's like I don't know. In liking the more like rebellious or like drop kicks or whatever, like I always was way more into like I don't know. I grew up on Nightmare Before Christmas, and even things like Dark Crystal have like an essence of like these like living mummies and shit, and it's like it's got this sort of like dark feel to it.
If you grew up in the Tim Burton era, essentially, you were primed to be a goth. Like you just to get into
and even when you go into the like Dracula world and you head into like Queen of the Damned and that sort of stuff that came out when I was like a teenager and all that stuff, you have these things that are just like ongoing of being like I'm more into that than like I don't know,
orcs
bloody rom-coms or something. I'd rather watch
like orcs kind of only exist in I talk about like the order, chaos, destruction, death, etc., etc. Like what is quintessentially orc about Games Workshop almost only exists in fantasy, like in made up stuff, whereas like the threat of death and even like chaos and
Lord of the Rings, Warcraft,
Warhammer.
Those are your three places you find it.
Yeah, you don't find that crossover necessarily into. I mean, I guess Goonies has sort of like an ogre crossover, with what is his name, Chunk or whatever. Hey, you guys. What the heck's his name?
Guys.
What's his name? I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, because Chunk is the kid.
It's the kid, yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling the same way as you right now.
Anyway,
because I always think Chunk too, and I'm always like, no. Yeah.
Checking, help us out here.
Yeah.
Freaking Josh Brolin is the older
and it's interesting too that even when orcs show up and stuff, it's generally like
Sloth.
They either go more goblin-y.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Goonie,
like you don't ever really get the orc. You get like orc-ish.
Right. Right. Like
goblin-ish.
Right. They're not. Dark Crystal's got I'd say a representation of goblins. Obviously, Labyrinth has goblins, but like, but like you don't really get that. But like the Goblin King himself is like more of a freaking vampire-esque with the prettiness and the huge hair.
Yeah.
The massive codpiece.
Totally.
Like you could totally. He's wearing the freaking cravat. Like he's got the frilly collars. Like you're like that's the Goblin King's a vampire. You heard it here first. Bowie, and Bowie himself might actually be a Slaanesh Star Master who's making us hallucinate seeing it. I don't want to get. Bowie defies the Grand Alliances, but he certainly appears the Thin White Duke is a vampire. Like he kind of defies. He is all of the Grand Alliances. That is the power of Bowie. The Goblin King is.
He's totally like more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The Goblin King. Well, David Bowie would have totally been on the Pantheon, right?
Yeah.
Like he would have been a Pantheon god for sure.
Oh yeah. Like in the time of Myth, like I mean, he might have even formed his own pantheon where it's just all of his personas throughout time. And if you know anything, here we'll go deep cuts here.
Or the pantheon was him
all along.
All of the gods were just they were just all visions of Bowie.
Yeah, it's just been David Bowie the whole time, and David Bowie was inside of our heart too. No, but if you know, David Bowie's like the personas and stuff. Like they were like, I mean, I have a complicated belief structure, and I lean way far more philosophical and skeptic than anything. But but David Bowie essentially inhabited these shells for a while, and he like needed them, and then like he doesn't even think of them as him. They were that thing that he needed for that album or that album, and so on and so forth. Like he didn't become actually just David Bowie until like sort of the sort of latter half of his career, because before it was like the personas and like living through the personas and stuff, and like he would change his diet, he would change the drugs he consumed, like which probably had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of like, but yeah, it's possible that David Bowie is all the pantheons, or all the gods of the pantheon.
And what's so weird about what's interesting about David Bowie is like David Bowie is David Bowie. You look at his works of art and his albums and stuff. But if you look at his ripple is really where David Bowie is important. You see where his influence has led a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
To literally to today, to right now, there's so many people that still are influenced just by the fact that like Ziggy Stardust existed, just by the fact that David Bowie, was the Goblin King, stuff like that. There's all these little ripples that has really made an impact. Yeah, like you just consider even something as interesting as like prog rock, like as a general concept, like prog rock. A lot of that feels very connected to David Bowie's like concept, like, and they weren't concept albums to him as much as they were just he was doing his thing.
No, he became Ziggy Stardust. He became the Thin White Duke. He became them. So they weren't like.
And then you have bands that are their concept. They don't really change that much. Like someone like Coheed and Cambria, they're just Coheed and Cambria, or Rush is Rush, but at the same time, they've taken on like their story. The story of the band is what guides everything.
What is it? The Coheed and Cambria, the new one, the Dark Messenger,
Dark Sentencer.
Oh, the Dark Sentencer is so good. I don't know if you've you guys can stop listening to RantCast right now. Just YouTube.
Just
bow. Oh, it's so. I was playing it for my friend who's like another huge like rock guy. He loves like guitar and stuff like that. And he's like I can't fuck with that falsetto. I'm like, dude, you should learn to fuck with that falsetto because you're missing the guitar.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And Welcome Home is just one of the all-time great licks. Just like that freaking. Oh, it's so good. I love Coheed and Cambria so much. But
Coheed was my first real concert.
Really?
Like when I was like, I'd been to other concerts, but I remember like when there was no parents around. I went with my oldest brother, and he was just like, we drank before. I felt like I was like, I was going to a concert, and this was it. We went to go see Coheed and Cambria in LA, and that was awesome. It was like my favorite for that reason.
Yeah. I my first concert was like crappy garage band stuff. Like mid-late.
But see, 90s. I did do that stuff. I did go to crappy garage bands and stuff. But I mean, like, first time I went to like a concert that was like purpose built at a theater with like, mosh pits, and I was like, oh shit, like it's real.
Yeah. See, I lived in that like house show life a lot of the time. My first real concert was 9 Inch Nails right before it became the Starsuckers tour. He was actually on tour, and then he picked up Trent Reznor picked up Marilyn Manson, as I recall, and then like a couple other acts, and then it became the Starsuckers tour. And at the time, APC didn't have their single out yet. So A Perfect Circle actually opened for 9 Inch Nails. And I'm like, is that fucking Maynard? And they had like sound issues like the whole time. It took me like a whole calendar year until I realized I had seen A Perfect Circle live, because.
And you're like, not only did I see A Perfect Circle is fucking Maynard from Tool.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's this band? I don't get it. I'm not sure I get it. And then you're like,
Well,
hold on a second.
Because Maynard only existed as a voice for me, and like the art for him, like you'd see him with a mohawk or you'd see him with the long hair, but like he always seemed like larger than life. Maynard is a very tiny human, and so like I'm like, what's this like tiny long-haired human doing on stage, and you can't really hear it, and like, and then like I'm like, oh
shit,
like I would have been way happier about that had I known at the time. Oh man. No, that's great. Welcome home.
Then also that puts in perspective as well. You're like, was it really that good? If I needed it to be Maynard for it to be good,
it was not a good the open wasn't very good. It wasn't very strong. Trent slayed it though. 9 Inch Nails was amazing. He wrecked half the stage. Yeah, like Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails, like the 9 Inch Nails, because they were having like sound issues going on, but they corrected them by the time Nin was on, and it was just this like it was like my whole heartbeat just changed to this like one steady like pounding throughout the whole concert, and it was just like the adrenaline, and then you could feel like I had this separate pulse going on in my wrist. It was this insane. So he was good. Of course, Maynard did redeem himself. I've seen APC once since at an outdoor concert, but it was still good. I've seen Pussifer every time so far, because Pussifer is classical. Like, you're not going to listen to the music, you're going to go watch a show. So the first time, one of the first times where they really kind of settled in, they did what was called the Country Boner Tour. And so like the first set is them reimagining all their weird like prog rock music as country western songs, and they're in character. So he comes out as like Jimmy D with a cowboy hat, and he's singing all the songs with a twang and stuff. And it's like he has a country western version of Queen Bee. It's like, roll those saddlebags on, climb no mountain way, and it's got like this country western thing. And there's Cherry Plenty as the girl who's singing with him, and like he's just. And then the second half, it's just like face melting rock, and I'm just like, whoa! It just like I don't know. And then Tool I've seen live once, and he summoned a plague of locusts. They were mayflies, but we went to the concert. It was outdoors. There was nothing. After he finished Anima, like we were walking and the ground was crunching, and you looked down, it's just all the mayflies everywhere had like since come and died in like all around the area. And I'm just like, because one of those concerts on the lake type thing. So it was metal as hell. Yeah.
I still think my favorite concert of all time ever, ever, being side stage at Tenacious D. That was my favorite concert I've ever been to. Like, I would not take that one back. That one was absolutely sick, and Jack and Kyle are just funny as fuck.
It's 2 for me. The third time I saw Pussifer, they were doing their Lucha Libre set, which was fantastic. There was a narrative throughout the whole thing. They had a wrestling ring in the stage. The opening act was Lucha Libre wrestling.
Oh my god.
Where like they came out lucha, but there was like a whole like hokey story arc where they had to free the Gringo, and the Gringo is of course Maynard, and like so they're wrestling for a key. It was like my god, and like we must free the Gringo and shit. Oh, it's so good. Like so it's that Flogging Molly, because it was the first concert.
Oh, Flogging Molly is great.
I'd seen Flogging Molly. This is the second time I'd seen Flogging Molly. The first time as a rowdy teenager, during the Tony Hawk Underground days, or Tony Hawk Pro Skater, right? Like that.
Yeah, Pro Skater. Yeah.
When they got big, what was it? The song played on there was, what was it? Oh my gosh. Drunken Lullabies. Drunken Lullabies was the tune played on it.
Drunken Lullabies, not Seven Deadly Sins, but yeah.
Yeah. So Drunken Lullabies. So I saw them then, and then I saw them as like a about to be 30-year-old with my son Colin. He's like 2 or 3. He was up on my shoulders, and to see how that band had aged kind of with me, and like he had like so I'd heard Drunken Lullabies as this like kind of angry like fuck yeah, like song when I was younger, and to hear the rendition when he was older as almost like the song of mourning, like like must it take was it all like for hurtful lies, or must it take all life for hurt-filled eyes to glisten once again? You're just like, and it was this lament, and I'm like, oh, and like, so that was a really great concert because it was like this really interesting cross section between who I was, who I am, and kind of the future with my son, and then Shaky Graves. He fucking rocks. If you could ever see, I don't know if Shaky Graves gets down under often. He's kind of post-punk, single man act type thing, but he
actually never heard of Shaky Graves. Check this out.
Okay, stop. Roll Them Bones by Shaky Graves, where he's playing a kick drum and doing hammer-on like guitar solo, and like he's just like, no human should be this skilled at the guitar and percussion at the same time. Like he's a goddamn busker. And just,
is he like a busker?
Yeah, like I just shredded.
Yeah, okay.
He's a lot more refined and polished, but he's post-punk firmly. He's not a novelty act. Like he's just very talented artist, and so he's real good. Really out of Austin, Texas. He's got a really he's in that weird like how punk has kind of started to go back to its like Woody Guthrie sort of like folky, like genre. It's like like the Menzinger, not the Menzingers, like Gaslight Anthem, and how they've all sort of like started to regress. So he's kind of in that vein where you look very bluesy, very like he's got some prog stuff in there. Yeah, pretty rocky. Wow, there we go. Yeah. There's a rabbit hole for you. That's the thing.
The rabbit hole. I was gonna say I went to a concert like last year, and it was a metalcore concert. It was Architects, Polaris, and another UK band. And I came home and I was sore for probably like 2 weeks. I'm like being in a mosh pit and like all that stuff, and I was like, getting too old for this, man.
I don't fuck with the mosh pit anymore either. For me, it wasn't
like I wanted to do it because I was like, I got it. I want to do it. I'm getting older. I did it, and I was like, yep, I'm old. I just need to stop. Mosh pits, we'll leave that for the 20-year-olds, still dumb and ready to hurt themselves.
Oh my gosh, it's weird because I remember the one time like went to Deftones, which is like a fantastic mosh, like one of the best mosh pits I've ever been in was Deftones. I went to Deftones on this like, gosh, had to be like 7 years ago now, and so I'm like in my late 20s, and I actually bought the VIP seating away from the mosh pit. And I'm like, this is like, that's the progression.
Yeah.
Like when you're younger, you buy the shittiest floor ticket you can, and just fight in the
go in the general.
Yep, go in general and just start a mosh pit, and then I'm not.
Then now you're like, can I get the beer garden? Can I get the beer garden ticket?
Beer garden, please.
I'd like to be in the beer garden the whole time.
Yeah, could I go sit away from the stage, off to the corner, and up a little bit, so that I could look down at the mosh pit and drink down my beer?
It's like, oh, those kids are having a great time.
Yeah, look at that.
I remember that.
I used to be so angsty, and then I go home and I just write the angstiest shit I've ever written in my life in my 30s. It's weird because I feel like when you're young, it's angst with a purpose. When you get older, it's just angst.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's funny because when you're a teenager and you're pissed off about something, and you have a dad or you have a grandpa or something like that, who's just you don't even know what you're mad about right now, and then you get older and you're like, oh, I fucking know what I'm mad about. And now I get why they told me I didn't know what I was mad about yet.
Yeah, man. No, it's beautiful.
When you watch a little kid crying, then you're like, oh, you don't even have a job yet, dude. Don't talk to me. Don't you cry.
It's all relative. It is. You find the thing about pain is that it really never gets any smaller. It's just always pain is a constant. What happens is you get bigger, So it's all yeah.
Yeah.
But so the rock influence in the Orcs was a point of sort of this personal attachment type thing.
I wanted to pull different genres of metal into it too. So there's sections of it that are more black metal than others. Other sections that are more death metal-y and kind of. Then Fury Road also pulls into that too. So I was like, oh, I really aesthetically I love Fury Road and wanted to throw that in there, so I made sure I included that. And it was just a fun thing for that reason.
So going into death, what's the inspiration you're pulling from? Because you mentioned we've kind of covered that, like, okay, hey, like death was kind of always that resonant, that constant. We ended up on this tangent talking about the Goblin King and the crossovers between orcs going into a show. It's like you kind of get like that, just the light inspiration, but death is, kind of throughout them all.
Death is deeper.
Yeah, much deeper and much more. Yeah. Yeah. So what's the inspiration going into the?
I mean, realistically, OBR in like, if we pare it down, we trim it all the way down to the very bottom. It's actually interesting. Well, at the end of the day, it really is coming from the Bible in a weird way, because the main thing for me was to do the 4 horsemen. I was like, it feels a little relevant because it's 2020, right? Like 2020, it's fucking radical. It could be, could be a major change in the world after this, and who knows what it's going to look like and all that stuff. I was like, I want to do something based around the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Like that's where I want to go. And there's an artist that there's a miniature artist that I've always, when I moved to Australia, we got to know each other a bit. We've connected and done a few things, especially when he was playing Warhmachine. That's Trenton Innocent. And then when he took off and he started painting, I just was always watching, following along what he was doing. And honestly, one of my favorite pieces that he did, and one of my favorites, I think one of the main reasons it became my favorite is because more than I think some of the other ones, I got to watch a little bit of his struggle with it. And there's this really beautiful model. I think it's by Michael, and I'm blanking on his last name, starts with a K. And it's the 4 horsemen. And it's this really amazing large-scale diorama. Like underneath it, there's like, the ground, and you have like people that are like trying to reach up that are like lost souls.
A little Dante's Inferno-esque.
It's like Michael Constantinus or something along those lines for the company that makes it. Anyway, Trent's version of it, I just remember watching him work on it and then like modify it, at least on like social medias and stuff. I just really liked that piece because of watching that process and watching that happen. And it's always been one of those things that stuck with me to the point of, as I've been getting more into painting and more focused on it, I actually at some point would love to get my hands on the full version of it, because right now you can only buy like the 4 separate horsemen, but there's the whole like diorama base too, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to get it. Maybe I'll just have to buy the 4 horsemen and make my base.
Make your own base.
Then I was like, I'd actually just really love to make a 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that's playable on the battlefield. I kind of thought, and I was like, I've really liked OBR since it came out, because never really liked skeletons as like goofy little skeletons.
That's fair.
I like skeletons as like empowered skeletons, like in demand skeletons. Like let's go to war skeletons, not like this little shambly like necromancer.
Yeah.
It's like your friendly neighborhood necromancer just brought up a few skeletons to like go help him.
See, I think that is also cool. Thank you.
I think that's cool in like a Mordheim type game. Okay. If I'm throwing down on like a big battlefield against like like the orc horde, I don't want like my little necromancer to be the vanguard. I'd want him to be like, you go take care of that objective over there thing. Just keep it on.
I actually get what you're saying. I think this is a great case in point for why Ossiarch Bone Reapers like should kind of exist here, because necromancy, just necromantic undead as it exists in like the L1 battle tome, like not that I'm like knocking on it. When you're talking about, these orc hordes, when you're talking about Gloomspite Gits who are like psychic mushroom empowered, like, when you talk about Stormcast Eternal and like all these really big, even Caradhran Overlords, all these really big, lofty Age of Sigmar, fantasy ideas, like just basic undead almost doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it fits. And Ossiarch Bone Reapers really are like skeletons took the TMNT Super Shredder serum and just like and like now they're just like they have 12 souls. I would also posit that they're rather progressive in that like the gender politics of the army is very interesting because you can have like non-binary and like blended souls and stuff.
So, they're just skeletons, man. They're just skeletons. You know, you can put whatever you want to on that skeleton.
Yeah, they can be anything, literally anything.
Yeah, whatever you want. And you know, I think realistically is like when you look at what's probably the best example. I mean, you can kind of see it in something even just like Lord of the Rings, right? You look at like how they dealt with Sauron. This might be a good one. Literally at the beginning of that first movie, you're like, and then you know throughout the movies you kind of see the way that they deal with most conflicts. It's like a small conflict, having one necromancer with his skeletons might be good. It could be adequate. If you're facing Sauron, the freaking like destroyer of the world, the wielder of the ring, you want stuff that's a little bit more weaponized. You want bone catapults. You want freaking like cavalry riders that could actually take a charge or like you know,
well, I mean,
could actually
Saruman,
charge and like do some damage and stuff.
Saruman isn't pleased with the existing, you know, like orc, so he makes bigger orcs, right? Like, like that's the whole like premise.
I make better orcs. Yeah, let's. The Uruk-hai are Uruk-hai are a great example of that too. Like goblins suck. Not Uruk-hai.
Right.
That's it. That's the Ossiarch Bone Reapers are the Uruk-hai of the undead. Yeah, the perfect blend of weaponization.
No, it's legit. And so you're going into this like sort of like sweet biblical, the sweet biblical like 4 horsemen drought. We have like Catacross here. I've got him on his mount. You've got the chain work in there.
So he'll be Conquest. So he'll be the white horse.
Behold the pale horse. When and now.
So Xantos is the war, and then Catarcan, as I've been lovingly calling him, will be the horseman of conquest, the white horse, and then I'll do 2 liege cavaloses that will be famine and death.
Cool. How are you gonna run this as like a you know, the lieges and then catacross, or do you like haven't even thought about the game aspect, just the sweet model aspect?
So the way that I'm going to run it is just as a double battalion Staliac Lords list.
Yeah, so two Death Lances.
Yep.
Cool.
So basically, it would be like Xantos with 1, a liege with the other. I even though I'm making 2 lieges, I'll probably never use more than 2 in a list at a time. So it'll either be like 2 lieges or a legion of Xantos.
Yeah, fair enough.
Depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, and you got the need for speed. Got to go fast and smash. So it'll be a lot of fun. So this kind of I think I haven't even paid attention to the time. That's how you know it's a great episode. So it is of course.
We've been at this right.
Hour 40. So it is of course October. My favorite month, my favorite holiday is Halloween, the 31st. Australia, do they have Halloween down there in the Upside Down? Do you do Halloween like anymore? Like
barely. I mean, like if you think of like, I mean, they probably do this in Walmart in the States now, but it's like you go to the store and there's already all the Christmas decorations up, and there's like this one aisle of like Halloween stuff. And you're like, okay, cool, that's Halloween. And then like I live in a pretty popular suburb, like a pretty like family oriented one. And even still, we maybe only get like 5 to 10 families that trick or treat on like a good year, and we probably will get less this year.
Yeah, obviously COVID would be a factor in that, which is super super sad because like Death Armies and 4 Horsemen, all that stuff's pretty metal and pretty Halloweeny to me. But we were talking about inspiration, and
see, I always blended them together. That's the problem with Christmas and Halloween. They have because of the way that I think the stores do it. I always just like as soon as it's Halloween time, it's just like Halloween Christmas time.
Oh,
I you know I love Nightmare Before Christmas and all that, so it's always just like it in.
Yeah, you're living that Jack Skellington life. But you remember the moral of Halloween is to like kind of like be happy with who you are and your sort of like, you know, your thing, and to keep Halloween separate from Christmas. No, I'm just making shit.
That's true. And last night we were actually watching Night Before Christmas with my daughter, and she was so concerned where Santa was going and like what's happening to Santa. And I was explaining to her, I was like, well, they're letting Santa have a break. Jack Skellington can be Santa. Oh, why? And I was like, because Santa has to do it every year. Oh, okay. And then she was like, but no, why is Santa not at Christmas? And I was like, this is so figured out already. They know that it's supposed to be Christmas time. That it's supposed to be Santa, all this stuff. But yeah, it's like that's supposed to be separate. But I think the other important moral that comes out of Nightmare Before Christmas is that when you do mix the two, it looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, like it looks sweet as hell, and you know, you can find true love in the coolest holiday, which is Halloween, which is my anniversary. It's 10 years for me and Lulu on Halloween. That's when we had our first date, essentially our first kiss.
So Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween, a lot of good stuff. But so going to this sort of like drawing inspiration from anywhere, I wanted to do Go ahead.
I should start dating my wife in October, but not Halloween.
See?
That was cool.
See?
That was cool as Halloween.
I
started dating her at the beginning of October, but it was really sad because we had to leave each other right after that.
That first hit it off type moment?
October's a sweet month. I'm into it.
Yeah, October's pretty sweet. So I guess like
the only thing that's sad about October now is that it's spring instead of fall.
That sucks. See, I like that like all the leaves get pretty
like changing
and they start to die, and like I think that's pretty awesome. Like I'm such an edgelord.
Yeah.
I don't wear as much dark clothing anymore. I haven't painted my nails in black in a long time. I haven't rocked any like dark eyeliner or anything. But I am every bit of like an edgelordy goth on the inside. Oh man. My wife and my wedding anniversary is
November. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Finding.
I'm sorry, what?
So, inspiration for your army.
Tell
me about it. Let's talk this.
There's a
we're an hour and 45 minutes into this.
This is the secret topic. Only the real RantCast guests or only the real RantCast fans and the true chat gang sticks around for like the 2-hour mark. That's why we wait for the real topic until the 2 hour. We weed out all of the week. We cull them with talking about actually Age of Sigmar, and sometimes So I've actually had a problem.
Like it.
This is you can take the man out the edgelord, but you can't take the edgelord out of the man. I guess. It was like I really have been running back the tape lately. Because like there was that period of time where like I hated emos because like I was like I consider myself like a real punk, quote unquote, or like because my clique we were the dirty boots, quote unquote, the boots, because it was like a lot of us wore like some like Doc Martin or like a Army Navy surplus like jump boots.
Like we listened to Tool, Nine Inch Nails, and KMFDM.
Yeah, a lot of KMFDM. Yeah, Wumpscut, Skinny Puppy, like. And then like the Clash was big, and any like the weird like sort of proggy, stuff. Not so much the Cure, none of that stuff really.
You put a Misfits.
Yes, on the hoodie
patch on the back of the jacket.
Yes, with the fucking safety pins, or yep, you just like pin it on it, like.
Unless you get your mom who had the sewing machine to chuck it on there for you for real.
No, real. No, wait. It's way too sellout, way too poser.
Admit to the Misfits? Hold up.
It's got to be duct tape, or safety pins. Anything else?
Best is when you have the duct tape, and then the girlfriend sewed through the duct tape to have it so it was duct tape and cloth patch on the back after a while.
Okay, that's pretty metal. I accept this. Yeah, no,
or when the girlfriend hand stitches it, when you get the hand stitched, like, it's like purple thread on a black jacket because that's just what she had.
Well, that's your battle armor, right? Like you get the hoodie and or like denim vest from Goodwill, and you stitch the shit. Like you just get all the patches and all the stuff on it. Yeah. No, so I wasn't like my musical taste.
You get those little rivet spikes all over the shoulders.
Sometimes, yeah. Chains. It was more chains than like rivet spikes because those are hard, man. Like, but chains you could throw anywhere. Cool. So it's just like so I was just a little bit older than the emo and the scene kid and stuff like that. So like I really hated emos, and then Twilight happened, and so for a long time I had to shy away from the edgelord. I'm like, ew, edgelords, and I made fun of them all. And they're just running back the tape, and I'm like, okay, Jack Skellington, like Edward Scissorhands, like going through like a really big fan of the Vampire Lestat and Interview with a Vampire. Castlevania was my favorite game at the time. Like
Labyrinth.
Yeah, Labyrinth. David Bowie. Even that's like my huge crush on David Bowie.
I'll be an edgelord thing.
I'm like, oh, I might be an edgelord. like, it's liberating to realize that you loved all that awesome shit, and getting rid of the notion of like bandwagon versus someone is worthy or not worthy to be in a fandom or an interest, or these kids listening to their whiny music. I listened to the cooler whiny music before them. It just had more noises because it was industrial or something like that. Oh man.
Yeah, I did whatever I could to shed as many labels as possible as quickly as possible. I basically just became like a stoner art kid in school, so that way I could just literally get away with whatever I wanted to do. It was like I wasn't a goth, I wasn't a this or that, but I listened to Depeche Mode sometimes, listened to Tool other times, would listen to fucking death metal other times, Black Sabbath, whatever.
Oh, Sabbath, hell
and
yeah.
I could get away with it. I was just a stoner fucking art kid.
Yeah.
I would be tucked away painting in the art lab or whatever, and we'd be listening to fucking Paranoid or something. You know, it'd just be what we were doing.
Yeah. No, Rage was in there because Rage was like super, you know, like it was angry, it was loud, fuck the man, like, I just, man, I remember all the Evil Empire shirts that like my buddy would wear. Corbin was his name, and he'd wear those with the Jinkos, and then he'd have the freaking Army Navy surplus jump boots, and like one side of the Jinkos would be ripped all the way
Jinkos.
they'd be ripped all the way to shit, and then he'd just have them safety pinned back together with chains and stuff, and I'm like, you are the coolest guy ever, Corbin. Yeah, like that's the thing, is like
they'd have the friends with the lip service vinyl pants, like the super tight ones, like the super
I
super
had
tight ones.
I had a couple friends like that. I really liked pants with like chains and or straps on them, so I had a couple pairs like that myself, and like jeans that I would again put the chains on because chains are easy. You just chains on anything.
All you need is like an eye hole here and an eye hole there.
But also if you like Final Fantasy 7 or 8 or Final Fantasy 7 or 8, you're like belts and chains.
Oh, Final Fantasy 8, right? You just want to be Squall.
Yeah, who doesn't want to be Squall? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. No, so I actually my confession wasn't that I might have secretly been an edgelord the whole time and I just didn't know it yet because I thought it was way more hardcore. It was the I kind of like ran out of inspiration one time. I ran out of inspiration at the beginning of this year. I'm just like, I knew where I wanted to go with my art and I knew what I wanted to do. And you touched on this a little bit where you were kind of doing the Warcraft orcs, and then you're like, wait a second, you found like the metal stuff and kind of reignited your passion. And I think this is what we've been kind of getting around. Is you kind of got to like refill your inspiration from time to time, right? For you went back to metal. For me, it's like embrace it. It's all
finding things that you like.
Yeah, finding things that you like. I love that we've got this sub conversation about all the emo music that everyone likes and didn't admit to liking when they were younger. It's like who's the one that does a six set Gloria? And DeGauzer and I Hear You But My
Brandon.
Tommy Gun Don't. I Hear You But My Tommy Gun Don't, or whatever it is. They're actually awesome. I just chalked them off as one of those lame emo bands when I was younger. I'm like, oh, I can't listen to this. They're not hardcore enough. I've been listening to them a lot lately. I'm like, oh wow, this shit's pretty good. Like, yeah. Rise Against is pretty great. Like, they're from that same era. Like, they're pretty awesome, actually. So yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. To a lot of Rancid.
Rancid's the good, but Rancid's the good stuff. That was the acceptable. Yeah. You know, that's Misfits. That's Dead Kennedys. You know, the Dropkick Murphys. Like, that's from that era that was more acceptable.
Yeah, but then if you're listening to like Dashboard Confessional and like Elliott Smith, that's like the deep emo stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, there was a time where like Weezer was considered emo because they. But Dashboard Confessional, I actually had notes written in for a different episode. I was going to. I'm doing an episode later. It's called Punk Rock AOS. I actually wrote notes about Dashboard Confessional. Because Dashboard Confessional, and so this will be a second time for those of you that listen to that episode in November. The Dashboard Confessional was called that because he wrote his songs literally at his dashboard, living in his damn car, doing that like horrible touring life that like one of those you haven't made it and nobody knows who the fuck you are sort of things. And it's like, you kind of got to respect it, even if he was kind of whiny. And Turpentine Kisses or Turpentine Chaser is still a badass song. I don't care how whiny it is, okay?
Yeah. And then when you start to get into the ones that are actually really, really emo, but they're more accepted, and you realize that like if you listen to their lyrics, they're probably even further down the rabbit hole than Dashboard Confessional. It's just that their music doesn't sound it as much. So like when you get into like the Alkaline Trios and like Bayside and stuff,
be careful.
The actual music, is super like that. The lyrics
the
themselves,
3-chord like
way more emo, way more darker, like in Dashboard Confessional.
Well, see, now you're talking
but way more.
You go ahead.
Listenable.
You're talking about like because the 3-chord like sort of aggressive like sort of classic. Alkaline Trio is one of my favorite bands. Like Radio isn't it the best breakup song ever?
Yeah.
And the lyrics are just like go throw the radio like in the bathtub with yourself, like like it's so aggressive.
My best breakup song is still Dear Tragedy from Bayside. It's still my favorite breakup song. I'll listen to that and I'll think about old breakups that I had. And the best part about that one is just the part where it's like, I'll grab your head by your hair and I'll hack it off and place it on display in the front of my yard with a little pink bow and a sign that says your friends and family should have taught you more about love.
Oof, that's brutal. I don't remember a breakup song, but San Francisco by Alkaline Trio was one like during a particular bad breakup where I really like that song just like spoke to me. It was like we started out like dating, went to the same school and I moved and then we were long distance and it was just like the worst breakup ever. And San Francisco, and I was drinking You Goodbye, like Heart Floats in the Bay from Sour Home Chicago. Like, it just like, this is like, oh yeah, you get me, Alkaline Trio.
You're like, I used to, and I remember there was another one too, Jaked on Green Beers. I remember we used to drink to that a lot. And I definitely remember listening to that after breakups and being like, I'm gonna fucking forget the shit out of this chick.
Well, so there's so Razor Tree, you bring up another band that was actually cool to like in my circle of friends, which is Typo Negative. And Peter Steele was the first porn penis I ever saw was Peter Steele's. So there's a little Meph trivia for you because he did a Playgirl spread or whatever.
Oh, shit.
And one of my friends, she was obsessed with him, and she's like, "Hey, Andrew," and I'm just like, like, that is a penis. like in the.
It super depends on context, but like I just imagine this happening at like high school or something like that.
Yeah, like, no, it totally was. Like it was it was between classes, and so I had one of those friends who just like would hand out like she was awesome as hell. She would hand out like she if she went to the hospital, she would like get all the pamphlets and the brochures of like if you think you have problems. And she went to a super Christian hospital because her mom was like crazy born again Christian, you know. So it was like like don't masturbate, Jesus is watching you type thing.
Yeah.
And she would just walk up to people and just like hand them like don't masturbate, Jesus is watching you pamphlets. She'd grab. And so she's just like, hey, Andrew, pow. And I'm just like, what is it? It's always, man, that was.
Thanks.
My mom loved that spread, no joke. Yeah, and I remember it. I have the one image where he's on his knees, emblazoned in my mind.
It's literally still burning your retina.
I can see it. I see it right now.
Get little tracers.
Like, we'll just say that, like, so some people, like, so when you're taught proper singing technique, you're sort of taught to sing from the chest and open up and sing from, use the diaphragm. He uses his penis. That's why his voice is so deep. Like, I'm convinced that the Bone Tithe Nexus is based on that spread from Playgirl.
Oh my god.
You're welcome, everybody.
Oh.
You're welcome.
What was it? I so like a friend of mine had given me.
It
his
is the
Bone Tithe
69th
Nexus.
episode.
Yeah.
We had to have a little toilet humor or a little.
Yeah, we had to throw it in there.
A little of that type of humor in there. All right.
And I ended up having like he painted the main dude and then lost it, but he gave me the rest of the Bone Tithe Nexus, and so I didn't have the middle part. And I posted a thing on Twitter, and this hobby bear that sent it to me, and like gave me the dimensions, and someone like responded with like the little gif of like, that's a penis. Like, touche. I wonder how that would go over actually if I just got a fat dildo and just stuck that to the middle of my Bone Tithe Nexus and put that on the table.
Probably not well. I think Age of Sigmar is supposed to be somewhat family friendly. I am not.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I need to.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready for this? Are you fucking ready for this?
Okay, I'm ready for this.
We got this shit.
Okay.
This is the next goddamn hobby project, and this is gonna be the shit. Okay. So we're gonna buy a Gargant army, and we're gonna recast all of the Gargants. We're gonna buy them. We'll buy as many as we need to have. We're gonna recast the Gargants all in flesh feel silicone. So we basically just have like basically Gargant dildos on the table.
Oh my god, that's such a.
And they'll just have like a little bit of Bowie floppiness. So you're like, when you move your Gargant, it like has like a little like jiggle.
The wobble, like Ditto from the freaking Pokemon, just like. God damn it! Oh man, like this is now a Slaanesh
wobbly
episode.
Gargant army.
I'm sorry, everyone. This is now a Slaanesh episode. What am I?
You can also use the Gargants in the bedroom.
Yeah, there you go. Dual purpose. Cause, yeah. Gives a new meaning to Gate Wrecker, huh? Huh?
Hey.
I don't know. God damn it. Oh, okay. All right. 69th episode chicanery. We're done
like
now.
Home Wrecker.
Yeah. All right. So you need to read. So sometimes running out of inspiration, you can draw inspiration from anything, and Pete Steele is great from Typo Negative. But what I was going to do is talk about Halloween movies because it is Halloween. So I was going to talk about scary movies and armies that can be inspired by, like some horror movies and stuff like that. And this actually kind of came to me when I was watching The Ritual on Netflix. Actually, in September, we started our scary movie marathon, Lulu and I, last month. And The Monster in The Ritual, seriously go check it out. Like, that's a great flick. It's a really good flick. I love a good creature feature where it's like, like the scary monster thing is like awesome. And this one blends a little bit of like paganism, like scary possession-y stuff, which is like its own sort of subgenre of horror. But the monster in it, like, I saw that and I'm like, that would be the coolest, spookiest, like, Sylvaneth army ever. If you just, like... So this is where this idea kind of sprang to me, is you draw inspiration wherever you can, whether it's rock and roll or your own sort of, like, personal journey, whatever it is. And I think horror movies for like models is actually like a pretty cool, like a pretty cool place like where you could sort of tap some artistic inspiration. Um, the like I know that you had a top 3 list, and if you can maybe vamp for a little bit or have chat gang ask some questions because I've needed to clean up a spill for a while and I'm watching it slowly drift towards my computer. I've made a partition with my notebook, but it's gonna get there.
Yeah, no,
so Sylvaneth
and what?
Oh god, literally talk about whatever you want.
And just all right, no worries. You handle your shit, bro.
All right.
And so I think what's interesting is like when you do have the capability to look at something that you're into and actually apply it to an army, you have to find ways to just not limit yourself at the same time. You know, one thing that Andrew and I had talked about was like the concept of taking something that seemingly is like it doesn't add A to B, but then you could make an army or at least get inspired to make an army that really fits together. So like heavy metal orcs, that's kind of like it makes sense on a level because you have like really primal sort of similar sort of wavelength, I guess, and they kind of meet up. Then if you want to go real wild, you start to look at something. Maybe you're like really into Pan's Labyrinth. Like how do I take Pan's Labyrinth and like directly? We might go to like a Wood Elf army, but then you could also you could step into maybe Death and OBR and like to this sort of you could do something like a Catacross that's based on a Satyr and like a Pan's Labyrinth sort of feel. And you just have to take like a little bit of bits and a little bit of work in there. And then, maybe you could start to make your Cavalos Death Riders into Satyrs. And then you have the top half of like a skeleton body and the bottom half would be, the horseback or whatever. Yeah. So like, don't limit yourself on things that just add A to B. Like it's really important to look outside of it. And another one that I said to him in jest, but there's a lot of things that you could do with it would be like, you could take Looms by it gets and almost anything where there's like a lot of something, you could make it work. So, you could have shit. If you want to get real crazy with it, you could have like a Gloomspite Gits army where all the Gits are like little like fruits and vegetables, and they have like little arms, and they're like just like a horde of turnips and carrots and watermelons or whatever, like sort of random stuff. Or actually you save all the little stuff for that, and then you have like a mangler squid, like a watermelon monster thing. And yeah, you just like it's really important to have fun with this stuff, and it is about what you're into. Like if you do something where you want to make a Gloomspite Gits army that's vegetables, you got to be really into vegetables. Otherwise, that shit is going to suck. Like it's going to get so hard to get past that first squad of Gits when you start talking about 20 different dudes. If every time you gotta like green stuff up a turnip and then put arms and legs on it for it to be a stabba, and then you gotta do this and you gotta do that. Like you really want to just like gotta have something you're super passionate about. So if you are really into a book series and you want to make like say that you're into like the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie and you want to make like a Dagosca based Cities of Sigmar, well, if you're really into the First Law and you're really into like Dagosca and you're really into everything about that and you want to have like a Arch Inquisitor Glockta model is like one of your dudes, and you want to have like you want to really build it up and have it be thematic in that way. If you love it, you'll do it. If you don't, it's gonna suck. But you'll be able to find that these things you can just take little bits and pieces too. Like you don't have to fully scratch build everything. You can always just take like you take the inherent like information that's on these models and you convert them in ways where it keeps a little bit of the original model, and just adds to it. Like even with like my OBR stuff, I'm just adding to the aesthetic of OBR because I like OBR as it is. I'm just making it fit my scheme a little bit more with like head swaps and weapon swaps and small kit bashes and stuff. And I'll do a little bit more maybe on the HQ. But then for like the random guy, I don't really want to do more than like a head swap to get through an entire army. It's one model, it's fine, but when you start talking about 30 or 40 models, you just want to do little stuff to make it happen.
Well, what's interesting is this kind of goes
back from a spill.
Yeah. That's I mean, I'm actually like really proud. So you can see here this yellow note composition notebook. It says RC. This has been the RantCast notebook. I have lied the entire over a year of content about how I don't take notes at all. Rip, it took us 69 episodes. I'm proud of you.
Snap.
This will go on my OnlyFans merch page. I'll sell the S69 spill book. You can see all my weird doodles and stuff. No.
I'm ready to start a new. We should start a new website that's called Only Cans. Actually, it's just videos of us talking and drinking beer. And it's like if you miss going to the pub because you're in lockdown, you can just go on our Only Cans account and watch us.
I love that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's make that happen. No, I think this goes back to a little bit of like what you were talking about, how like when you'd look at the canvas, you just like you'd put it on there, or when you grab a model, it would kind of conform to what you're already doing. Like you're working with the model's aesthetic there. So one of the things that I have a hard time reconciling is converting a model that I actually already love the aesthetic of to my own personality. And I feel like you've really kind of nailed how that works. You know, like you're taking something that's already a little bit of an expression of you, and you're just kind of cranking it up a little bit or pushing it in a direction to kind of fulfill your vision.
Yeah, I think the important part is understanding what parts of the model you want or that you like and you would want to keep regardless. And then you like Occam's razor your way through the model and you go, what could go and what could stay? What could go and what could stay? And by the end of it, you'll be like, okay, so actually, if I just basically have this section of the model that can do whatever I want to with weapon, maybe some armor, maybe the head swap, like that stuff, then now you've got your basis for your conversions. Like with Catacross, I'm like, well, I want most of Catacross because I like that imposing sort of armor feel. But I could mess with the head a bit or head swap it. I could mess with the weapon a bit or weapon swap it. And the cape, I just need to make work with the situation. And that's kind of where I've gone with that.
Oh, all right. Right on. So we got chat gang here chiming in on like army inspirations and stuff. You are correct, Razor Tree. If I was ever going to have an overflowing spill, it is this episode. You're right. This is the one. We only get to make these jokes once, folks. I'm glad it took us until 2 hours to get there. So, we kind of edged it along. Okay, damn Pans would be so good as an army influence. Nagash, but from Pan's Labyrinth. I actually have Pan's Labyrinth here as a Beasts of Chaos inspiration. Think of that sort of like weird sort of.
See, I was saying what you could do with Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would be death. I was like, you could do some weird stuff with death where you have, Catacross could be a satyr.
Yeah.
Your cavalry Death Riders could be satyrs as well, and that would be your cavalry. You could do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. See, I taking Beasts of Chaos and making him that otherworldly horror, I think would be really cool. Kicker says, what would Nagash from Pans be? Like, how do you think you get that across? The most iconic thing for me from Pan's Labyrinth is the guy who eats the fairies. With like the no eyes and like that go in the palms of his hands like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would find a way to have this like sort of looming, like sort of tall, thin, like eyeless thing with these like hands that come up with the fairies fleeing away from his base instead of like the swirling ghosts around him. I think that's the direction I would go with that. Because that's that's the iconic.
I think the biggest challenge too is whether you stick with games where you models or whether you go outside of Games Workshop models for this. If I stayed within Games Workshop models, it would just be a lot of studying. I would just study a lot of various models and try and get to that point. If it was outside of Games Workshop, I think there's a few pieces that'd be good. Especially like there's a few Kingdom Death models that you could start that process quite well with. Or actually, the Creature Caster Death Elemental would be the good beginning of a Nagash if you want to go down the Pan's Labyrinth line, but keep it Nagashi.
No, that's
then you
good.
just kind of like head swap and do a little bit more.
For in AOS, I think you'd lean heavily on Tzeentch to get across the sort of Pan's Labyrinth thing. I think that's where I would go.
Yeah.
So I like
Tzeentch and Beast of Chaos for sure. The bodies in both of those.
And I think really it's about getting across like the tones. Like I would want that sort of ethereal dark paint scheme, you know. Going through it.
And a lot of pulling off a good conversion is good painting. Pull off almost anything, and like give it the right vibe if you paint it the right way.
So we both have one for IDK. You want to go ahead and say what your kind of concept is for IDK?
Man, my concept for IDK is upon just the idea that if we're going off of our favorite horror movie or horror movies, I think the most straightforward one would just be.
I think you're cutting out a little bit. There's that upside down internet. I'll wait for him to come back. He's got to buffer and catch back up with us. We lost audio completely. I can't hear you. We're probably about to lose him there. Sorry about that, everybody.
Maybe.
Hey, there you go. You're back now. Sorry. You said the way to go with that would be and like held us in utter suspense, and I think they heard the nut in the background.
Yeah. It is. Okay, yeah, perfect. Because then you hit go and you buy a bunch of sharks. Actually, maybe you don't buy a bunch of sharks. You go with Jaws. And what I actually think that you would do with Jaws to make it even better is you would actually do like a turtle size shark, and you actually play it as the turtle instead of having all the little sharks. And then you have like a big ass like turtle size shark.
I agree.
And then you can have like some Namardis that are actually just like little beach goers, and then you maybe have like some of the shark guys, but they're actually in skiffs and they're like hunting down the shark.
Yeah, so the eels are actually like in like the skidoos, you know, or whatever, hunting down the shark.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's fun.
But you always have to send the shark like all the way out to the front. You shoot him. The turtle. Send the turtle all the way down the.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. You could even have like the boats be like like a shark fin coming out the water instead, you know, on either side.
Yep.
Yeah. Mine for IDK was
instead of eels, they're actually just riding big shark fins.
There you go.
Hey.
Yeah. So my inspiration for IDK was actually Jeepers Creepers, which is a fantastic horror flick if you haven't seen it. Just kind of it exists in that weird renaissance in like the early 2000s horror where horror was coming back into the zeitgeist, because I mean horror exists in these weird sort of the best horror almost always follows times of true tumult in reality, because horror is essentially a dark mirror of reality. That's what it is. You know, Night of the Living Dead is about racial tension. You know, like there's, essentially it's about racial tension in the South. We always tend to follow stuff like that. I would posit that 28 Days Later is heavily regarding sort of like war and invasion of the sort of resurgence, war in the Middle East there. So like horror tends to be a dark mirror of what's going on in reality. And in the early 2000s, you had this one generation of filmmakers essentially finally getting to where they were allowed to make films that were reflecting on a bunch of the stuff that had bugged them for a while. So we got a huge shotgun blast of horror in the early 2000s. And Jeepers Creepers is one of those ones that kind of like hit the mainstream because of the cast. People hated in the mainstream. Horror fans hated it because it was mainstream, and so it just slipped between the cracks on 2 levels. But if you go, I think if you go back and you watch it, it's actually pretty awesome, pretty haunting, good creature. Again, I love creature features. I love a good creature feature, but the big reveal. I wouldn't spoil it too much, but the Jeeper creature monster almost has this, the creeper as it's called, actually almost has this like creature from the Black Lagoon vibe to it. And so I think that's like a really good inspiration for Ideneth Deepkin. Like go like full on creature from the Black Lagoon, get the like the webbed, like I think this is a green stuff project because the Namartis already have this sort of like finned and fanned ears. They already have like that the lagoony the thing, and I think you're green stuff in that. Yeah.
Be a rad Nurgle army too.
Rad Nurgle? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You could do a lot of that, like, I mean, you could probably push it more towards like the decayed weird side, but you could like either like a Great Unclean one, or you do it as like a Nurgle based Beast of Chaos army. And they all have like weird fin things coming out and big gilly like face thing that he's got and all that.
Yeah.
Like both of these.
Yeah, that's cool.
Worst part about this is going to be walking away, not doing all these armies.
The point is we're filling up everyone's inspiration in the community. Fluke Skywalker has a great one. Gremlin Gits.
Yep.
Gremlin Gits. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, Gits honestly is like this barrel of potential that I don't think that enough people are tapping into because maybe they just don't want to play a shit ton of Gits. Well, because there's a lot of options.
I think it has to do because the core aesthetic of that army is one that you don't want to touch. It's like me with Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I'm like, I already love most of this. And I'm like, how do I change this and make it better? I think Gits has that going on too because like the fungoid thing, it's so good already. Like the Troggoths are gorgeous models, and we're about to see a lot more of them because of the battalion. But how do you touch that and make it your own? Well, with a really strong personal inspiration, right? So Gits is one of those armies that it's like the opposite of ghouls, the opposite of Flesh Eater Courts. Flesh Eater Courts is a very blank canvas army. It's begging to be modified. Gits is like, oh, this is a very busy canvas. How do I make this mine? And I think that's part of the problem. Fluke Skywalker.
Yeah, and I don't want to get rid of all these cool features of these cool models.
Right. Fluke Skywalker with another one says, I think the low-hanging fruit is the Walking Dead themed zombie list for LON. I will see your low-hanging fruit and one-up your low-hanging fruit with Army of Darkness LON. So, like, actually have, like, the Necromancer be Ash from like, with the chainsaw arm and stuff like that, like, kind of pointing at the zombies and stuff like that. So I think that one's pretty cool. But you talked about like the untapped potential of Gits. You had a suggestion regarding Gits, and this actually ties into the Gremlins. Yeah, this ties into the Gremlin Gits. So Gremlins is of course a Christmas movie, right? So
yes.
What's the best Christmas movie? Is it Gremlins or is it Die Hard? Which one's the better one?
Gremlins and Die Hard?
Yeah. Which is the better of the two Christmas movies that are objectively Christmas movies? I can't even decide.
Gremlins.
Yeah.
Gremlins is the better of those two. I want to plead the fifth and pick another option, but I'll say Gremlins. Gremlins and Die Hard, I'll pick Gremlins.
Yeah, so you could do your Gremlin Gloomspite Gits and actually like Christmas theme them up. What was your suggestion for Gloomspite Gits?
I remember for Christmas Gloomspite Gits. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Just have a bunch of little presents and those weird little like animal things as being all your Gits, and then you just like for all the squigs that you have, you just turn them into pumpkins. You can have like little pumpkin riders, and then the pumpkin riders could be like kind of jazzed up a little bit. You could even keep them be goblins, and you could like do like a Nightmare Before Christmas labyrinth Gloomspite Gits. So you do the double theme blended together to make your end product.
I like that. I like that a lot. I especially like the pumpkin like squigs. I think that'd be really cool. My Gloomspite Git or my Nightmare Before Christmas.
Next one. My
Nightmare Before Christmas one would be actually Nurgle. I think like an Oogie Boogie.
Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, Oogie Boogie. Great unclean one. I think would be one of the coolest things ever. You can have like one of the plague bearers practically already look like one of the trick or treaters, and so you can have like the plague bearers being like the trick or treaters and stuff like that, and then have your like plague bearers be like some of the bigger, more prominent figures, like like there's the clown on the unicycle,
or have them be like all the worms that come out of Oogie Boogie, be like some of your plague bear, some of your nurglings and stuff like that too, like nurgling packs, be like little worms coming out of Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, you have the little wormies. Do up the gnarl maws, like the way that they do the trees in the hills in Nightmare Before Christmas, because they're super spindly and like a lot of spirals and stuff like that. I think that would be a stunning army to see.
Or you go all in on the Oogie Boogie thing, and you make the trees be like the roulette wheels and stuff like that, and so you have it be like the inside of Oogie Boogie's place, and you have it do like the blacklight themed coloring on all of the stuff, and you do like that as your theme for your whole army.
Oh, with the paint scheme and everything, with the blacklight like sort of effect, right? Yeah. I mean that would be an awesome. Oh, so go like
glowing fluoro colors and stuff.
My favorite Nurgle is Candy Nurgle. I'll up you one more time. He-Man themed Death Army, Skeletor, and Nagash. Too easy. Love Die Hard. Well, the Die Hard dude said that it's not a Christmas movie. The Die Hard dude was wrong. I'm making frost orcs for my bone splitters with ice weapons, says Dreamer. I dig it. Ice theme's one of those like sort of like really competent, like good sort of like good sort of approachable themes that you can really execute really well. So
especially on bone splitters, I think, because their weapons are stone or ice, relatively easy swap, which is it's just one of those things that depends on how you paint it, on how it plays out.
So I've got a couple more on my just two more on my list. Do you have any more? Kind of snaking through there.
Man, I could bloody sit here all day and come up with thoughts, but that would be really creepy. It'd be like the Annabelle style or like the Saw style face doll, like where it's got like the cheeks and like you do all that. I was trying to think of what would be actually the best army for that. I was thinking maybe Caravaggian overlords, because they all have those like metallic-ish faces already, and you just chuck that sort of like creepy doll face on top of what they've already got.
When you've got the you'd have to get rid of
some.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say then you just have like creepy doll dwarves. You could have like a puppeteer that's controlling them all.
Creepy doll dwarves. I like that. Get it more in the Saw sort of the genre. I refer to it as torture porn. That's your Saw, Hostel, that stupid walrus movie Kevin Smith did. Not quite full body. I guess body horror is a different genre. But like go like you could go like really hard with it, like the sort of torture porn, like KO actually, like the Saw, get some like.
Their weapons become like
they already have like needles and syringes. Needles and syringes and stuff. Yeah, like you could really go hard on that. So
what was that game? You remember a video game where it was like, I think Rockstar made it, and you were like sneaking through during and it was actually like set in the idea that you were in a game show, and you were trying to get through levels where people were trying to kill you.
I don't.
Okay. I just remember that one because it was a torture porn video game, effectively, where like if you got caught by somebody, you'd get like, you'd have to kill the other guy. So someone would be like put a plastic bag over a head or like choke them out with garrote wire, stuff like that, like super violent type stuff. And then when you died, you got like put in a room and dismembered and stuff, and it like showed it on their little hidden or like their own little like game show camera thing.
I don't remember. No, it's familiar to me, but I'm drawing a blank. You're starting to.
But that as a KO army.
Yeah, that as a KO army. Right on. So yeah. I'm not sure which one of these two is my best for last, but Cloverfield Gargants, since they're new, like Mega Gargants that are like all Cloverfield and stuff. So you go like for your main Mega Gargant or 2 of your Mega Gargants. I think this is again a green stuff project, or you have to start looking outside. But like for your main, because you're probably gonna have like the 1 Mega Gargant, that's Cloverfield. And then your sort of like smaller dudes, like in the Cloverfield movie, there's the little like nasties, and then you could like there's probably a Nurgle model that looks close to them, honestly. Like if it's the Puscoils mount, and so you could have this really cool like Gargant, like Cloverfield army, I think. And I say my best for last because this is an idea that I thought of a while ago, but like Cenobite OBR. So like Hellraiser, Ossiarch, Bone Reapers, because they already have like that sort of like
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Especially the Mortec Guard, like those would be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't think it's too hard. I mean, you save like the super like hard, because Pinhead doesn't actually get the pins in his face until like later on, but like the sort of grooves in the flesh and stuff like that, and they already have the sort of like reticulated like look to their body. Like you could really go like sort of push it into that sort of really deep like macabre, add some extra like straps and like some leather painting textures, have the harsh white, harsh black, like I think a Cenobite Ossiarch Bone Reapers would be like fucking awesome.
Ooh, you could steal a lot of stuff from the Delaque, whatever you call them, from Necromunda, the ones that have all like the leather jackets and the strapping and stuff like that off it. You just take it from them and chuck it on OBR guys and maybe do some swaps in there.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So I mean, I believe that's about we had about 10 between us that we were trying to get to. So so helping you get some spooky inspiration if you wanted to go that route for the Halloween. Yeah, for the Halloween special. The last thing I want to wrap on is just your podcast, which is Hobby Headspace. You have about 4 episodes up now, and you're kind of back in the workshop. I really like if I can pad your ego a little bit here since I'm the host. I really like your show. I only made it about 4 episodes in, then COVID happened. I think your March episode is right around the time I stopped listening to most other people's podcasts,
which is when it stopped.
Yeah. So about March is when I just watched my first live episode of Warhammer Weekly last night, and I'm a huge fan of Vince and stuff. So, it's for me, it's not a other content creators thing. It's been a very me thing, and I've just been trying to find my inspiration again, which is why this episode is both humorous and funny, but also deeply personal. But your show is really awesome.
Yep.
I really like that you're doing the adjacent like I like that you're doing this sort of hobby adjacent stuff. Basically picking a community member. You had Tristan on there. I think you had Smorgan too, didn't you?
Did have Sam?
Yep.
Like did end on a pretty decent note where it was Tristan, Sam, you, and James Morehouse, and I was like, all right, well, get him. I can retire from there. I'm sweet.
Yeah, that's like the Bill Murray in Space Jam, where he comes out for the one amazing play, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you should go pro," and he's like, "No, I gotta go ice my knees," like because he just has that one amazing possession in him. Yeah, no, I can COVID retire. I already I had I came on, the bases were loaded. I hit the grand slam, and I can retire a world champion. Yes, so it's really cool. Again, they're that sort of in that adjacent category. You go even more hard in the paint than I do. You don't even start pretending that it's an Age of you're going to talk Age of Sigmar. You essentially kind of grab Age of Sigmar community members, you bring them on and just kind of like talk to them.
What else do you do?
Yeah.
What else does your life look like?
Yeah. I really enjoy that. You get across your own POV in the process. Your episodes are around 30 to 40 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes depending. So a good size for a like a podcast that isn't insane like me. And you were kind of talking about but now you're evolving. So Hobby Headspace, you guys can watch it right now. It's on Castbox, at Anchor, anywhere you get your podcasts. What's the future for it though? Because I know we were talking about bringing that back or what that might look like.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting process. COVID, like, I don't know. That's what everybody falls back on, is like COVID did this or COVID did that. COVID, what it really forced me to do was get really internally focused and not be as much of like spreading myself out. So I just got really internally focused, and like I stopped consuming a lot of media, both, well, pretty much anything that involved the video, whether it was TV or movies or anything. I pretty much wasn't watching anything. I don't really watch that much stuff now because I just wanted to get into art. I've just been focusing on my art so much, and trying to get better and trying to be mindful of how I get better at it. And I've taken on commissions and stuff like that in the process of doing various different types of art, and that's just where I've been mentally.
Designing tattoos for insane podcast hosts.
I started designing tattoos. Yep. Taking care of logos for good people in the community too.
Yeah, you did Coach's new logo, right?
You know, all of it. Coaches, and I had Clint's. I've got another one in the tank too. So I just keep doing stuff, and things that pay the bills and all that. But the big thing for me with hobby headspace is really, it's just been like, because I've been so focused on my headspaces not being as outwardly focused to help other people's headspace. And I think that was the purpose from the beginning, was just to help give perspective, I think, with, let me get people on that maybe they're used to seeing them in another context, being like, this person's a dad, and, that spends half their time doing this, and then the hobby just happens to be this other fun thing they're able to fit into their life or whatever. What else happens, and everybody's got different shit that they have going on. It isn't, even though maybe all a Twitter feed is pictures of models getting worked on. Very few people I know even that are like professional level painters just paint. They do other stuff too. So I'll get back into it, but my getting back into it's going to be a pretty different getting back into it. I've got a new camera that's coming at the beginning of next week, and then I tried to do some video on my phone, and I just was not happy with the outcome. I got a new tripod, I got a new camera, and I'm going to start doing video, and try not to just have it be like, here's me painting a model for an hour and let me shorten it down to 15 minutes. Like, I think there's a lot of those that are very good, and I think I'll leave that to people who are very good at that. My plan is to do things that are a little bit more about.
I know that feel.
Yeah,
I know that feel.
like
What if I edited down the RantCast to 1 hour and then really concise stuff about the hobby and competition and stuff? Then there's literally everyone I listen to and love and adore is already doing it and crushing it. I'm like, nah, man, they don't need me. Yeah. No, I like
it. Yeah, I mean, the goal is to live up to the name, right? And it's about headspace. It's about being able to set yourself up in situations where you can sit down and work for an hour and feel like you can complete things. So it'll be very focused in that side of how do we work on our hobby space to be more hobby usable, or how do you throw all your paint into a box and pick out a few colors and succeed with it and feel happy with your outcomes and that sort of stuff. And then, just fix the way that you're dealing with it. Because I think, man, if there's anything that you can learn, like if you're someone that's new, that's trying to learn how to paint, or you're someone that wants to get better at painting and stuff like that, if there's anything that there's an abundance of on the internet, it's people ready to give you rules for how you do that. Like, to do this, you have to get that and this and that, this and that. Yes, all of those things are helpful. I guarantee you that a lot of the things that people say are helpful are actually helpful. It's really, really hard to always have everything all the time, especially, let's say you order something off the internet and it takes 2 weeks to get to your house, or a week to get to your house, depending on where you're ordering it from. Like, that's 2 weeks where you might just be like literally sitting on your hands doing nothing. You're just like, well, can't do anything until I get my wet palette. Can't do anything until I get the pale gray from Vallejo, because I can't do that recipe that I saw. It's like, nah, there's shit that you could be doing that whole time, even if it was just absolutely rehauling your entire hobby space to be more usable once you get that stuff.
So as the name suggests, is to really kind of set up your
So
the mental side of things, that head space, but then also your hobby space, and so you got the nice little. I like that because I remember when I'm still struggling as a writer, mind you. I've had a couple things published, but I was struggling to write at one point. It wasn't quite a writer's block, but it was like I don't, and so I started buying a bunch of like guides on writing, and my friend
yeah,
said to me, "Stop me." He's like, "Andrew, which book are you going to read to fix your motivation?" He's like, you know how to write. Like I've read like, what are you going to read to get your head clear and like to get motivated again? Because that's probably the harder part of approaching something creative. It's not the like getting a recipe is like kind of like a middle step to painting a model. It's all that other stuff before that.
Yeah.
You know, like it's hard to
like I'm 100% ready to get a model, and then you get the recipe, and then you're like, okay, that's how I do it. You had to get to the point where that recipe actually meant a damn thing.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty great. Any final tangents or soapbox moments? Oh wait, I'm sorry. When should we be looking for Hobby Headspace in its new form? And I think you mentioned
the goal is to get at least at least one video by the end of the year. That's what I'm gonna hold myself to. I've already got
can
most
I,
of.
Can I hold you? Can I hold you to one video?
Yeah, you can hold me. You can hold me to
December?
that. Next thing you know, I'll have like weekly videos out of
one video by December.
One video before the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, I've got a logo, I've got music, getting a camera, and I've got ideas. That's like 4 out of the 35 steps that it takes to make a YouTube video, but we're almost there.
The hardest part's the idea. The next hardest part is doing the thing.
I feel like the execution is the hardest part.
Nah. No, you do the thing. You can always refine and polish. My first episode of RantCast was turning on my camera and yelling at Haywo to get in here. And then I talked about Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
Yeah.
And I've got 69 episodes. And I am not the Honest Wargamer. I'm not Vince. I'm certainly not Haywo. I'm not Ian. I'm not AOS Coach. I'm not Doom. I'm not any of those guys that I look up to. But like I do
Your
the
own
thing. I do my thing. I do it each week, and I do it to a standard that I'm happy with, but know it can be better, and I try to get better every time. You're not going to come out just like painting. Even making your video, you're not going to come out looking like Rembrandt. You know, you're not going to come out already crushing it. You gotta put in your 10,000 hours, dude.
Yeah. So. And I honestly, I think one of the hardest parts for me to do videos of anything, like to actually like put together all the stuff, is like it's gonna cut into other hobby time. And I'm like, man, am I ready to give up hobby time to do that?
No, see,
it's
that's
like,
the harder part.
Well, I gotta put together all the pieces to be like, this is how I actually work these processes into my larger process. And that's what really made me be like, I just need to get a camera and a good tripod so I can have it just be part of my overall process, rather than have to worry about fiddling with where my phone is at in this little rinky-dink tripod setup that I had. I'm like, if I just have a tripod and I set up my camera, yes, there's things I'm going to think about, but it's not going to be like, oh shit, it moved a centimeter down and now the angle's all off and it's going to look like crap.
Yeah, can't see anything. Yep. No, I understand. Well, time is the most precious component, and there's no way to make up for that apart from becoming an insomniac.
But the only challenge with being insomniac is you gotta figure out that sound issue in the middle of the night. So like if you're talking and doing all that and other people are trying to sleep, if you do quiet stuff, it's cool. Airbrushes and whatever, it's a little loud.
Yeah, just painting is no, I get it. Talking the whole time, especially if you have a deep timbre, you know. So
or trying to voice over stuff that you've done.
Yeah, whatever it is. Do you so any last things you'd like to talk about regarding any of the numerous topics we brought up this evening?
I feel like I've ranted a fair share. I think the only thing I think that's really important, and if there's anything you can take away from anything that I've said, is just like literally, it's really important to be in whatever you're doing if you actually want to improve it. So if you want to get better at converting armies, you're really not going to get better at converting armies by thinking about it. You're really not going to get better at converting armies by talking to other people about an idea that you had and then never following through with it. It's like you got to just try some shit and fuck it up really bad before you get something that's good anyway. So just try stuff. And I need to take my own advice when it comes to making videos and all that too. And it's very easy for me to say it because obviously there's a section of my life or sections of my life where I'm more than happy to try to execute. I feel like in miniatures and like in your hobby, that's like one of the safest places where you can just execute and quietly fuck up. And like worst comes to worst, you just like slip it into a trash can and throw it away. Like if you mess up that bad, it can just go away.
Well, yeah. Well, that's where Vince has the paint fearlessly or convert fearlessly. Just chop the head off of a Nagash. See how it makes you feel at the end. Just take a saw to a $200 model. There's always
the worst thing that happens to your Nagash is you have to put a little scarf around him so that way it looks like it was always meant to be that way.
That's right.
To Nagash.
Anything you want to put on? Anything you want to put on blast? Anything you want to shout out yourself?
I post a lot of shit on my Twitter, so if you do want to see the dumb shit that I come up with, I got my Twitter.
The awesome shit he comes up with.
Awesome shit that I come out with. I feel like at least 10% of the stuff's really awesome, and then some of it's just wild, and there's some combination thereof of things that are in the fat middle. And then when I start doing YouTubes and maybe if I do some more podcasts, Hobby Headspace is the other place to find stuff, but I'll always link it on my main Twitter. My Twitter and my Instagram are pretty much my go-to places.
Do you have the YouTube
other than that, I just paint a bunch of stuff.
For Hobby Headspace?
I have my YouTube, but what you need like 100 subscribers or whatever before you actually get like a custom name. So I have to get to that point.
Fair enough. Well, why don't
you... I just post it and start getting subs, and then that way I get my custom name before I even put on my video.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, man.
But
at least give me the link so I can.
Anyway.
I can toss you a sub. I don't mind helping people. Not that I have like tons of clout or anything like that. I'm probably about as small as one can be. That still has a
but still have
show.
Clout.
Yeah, well, yeah, something like that. It's just because like I know good people. I know people that are way more impressive than me.
It's an important thing to have.
And then I have them all on my show, and like you, and and
we just fed each other.
Yeah,
know?
It's a loop. Yeah,
people listen to Hobby Headspace because Meph's on there. Maybe people watch it because I'm here. Who knows?
That's what it is. Yeah, it's about
just a dude.
Each other up. All right, man. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
That's what this community is all about.
That's right. Helping each other out.
Glad to be here.
And it's a good time to be helping people out. There's a lot of check in with your friends, everybody. Send them a message. That person you haven't heard from in a while. I don't know. You know who I'm talking about. You there in chat, gang. I see you. You're like, I should have messaged them. You know who it is. Send them a message. Just say, hey, what's up? Doesn't need to be any more than that. There you go.
Check in. Even if they don't respond, just check in.
Just check in.
Some people are taking social media breaks. It's a common thing right now. So
That's right.
Don't automatically assume. Or some people are just like, I'm not going to touch Twitter for the next month, which is reasonable if you're feeling that way.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's the thing too.
We'll see how I feel after November. I might not touch
a break. Take a fucking break.
Yeah, I might be taking I might go a social media blackout here pretty soon myself. All right, everybody. Chat gang, thank you so much for being with us tonight. You are the show within the show, the reason we do this thing. Remember to drink your milk, pay your taxes. Most importantly, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everybody. Good night, Sean. Thanks for being on.
Good night. Thank you.